What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 2 decimeters. 021. Crush Byakuya, the real Bankai. Advertise here. Bai Ye accepted Byakuya Kuchiki's challenge. Suddenly, everyone in the field became noisy, and everyone looked directly at the two of them. This was a battle between special freshmen. Moreover, the two of them have a third-class spiritual power and a fourth-class spiritual power. What's more, Byakuya Kuchiki is the eldest son of the Kuchiki family and has a profound background. This is no less than a captain-level battle. In the entire Seireitei, this is considered a big event. Them. Above. Hiroku Shunsui's mouth twitched slightly. Byakuya Kuchiki, the eldest son of the Kuchiki family, has a huge power behind him. Bai Ye, on the other hand, is a captain-level genius who is young and has unlimited potential. He has first-generation Kenpachi Unohana Retsu as his sister. And, because of Bai Ye, Shihouin Yoruichi became Bai Ye's white hits, Shunpo teacher, and didn't have much contact with Byakuya Kuchiki. It is rumored that the relationship between Bai Ye and Shihouin Yoruichi is also very good. It can be said, if any one of them makes a mistake, the entire Seireitei will be shaken. Teacher Yamamoto, if you don't stop. Jashiro Yukitaki looked at Yamamoto Genryusai, but seemed to think of something and stopped talking. Stop. How can we stop this? Soul Society has a strong martial arts style. This challenge, which is watched by everyone, once stopped, will have a great impact on the practice of Bai Ye and Byakuya Kuchiki. Not to mention, it will also cause dissatisfaction in the entire Soul Society. The growth of genius is not for care, but for growth in battle and blood. Not to mention, if the two of them had a real fight, their lives would be in danger. Isn't there still the strongest person in Soul Society sitting here? There is nothing to fear, as long as Yamamoto takes action, the safety of the two of them will definitely be protected. Yamamoto Genryusai, on the other hand, squeezed the cane gently. A pair of eyes looked at the battle below without sadness or joy. Bai Ye, draw your sword. In the square. At this time, a large space has been vacated. Byakuya Kuchiki stroked the handle of the knife and pulled out the Senbon with a clang sound, while looking at Bai Ye with solemn eyes. Today, it's up to him to defend the majesty of the nobility. There is absolutely no way that Bai Ye, who was born in Rukongai, can become the strongest freshman. At this time, in the square, everyone held their breath and prepared to witness the next battle. Only, under everyone's gaze, Bai Ye still looked lazy and didn't care about Byakuya Kuchiki at all. Instead, he held the wine gourd in his left hand and took a sip during the battle. Open black lens bracket ding. Close black lens bracket. Congratulations to host, who drank before the war and regarded Byakuya Kuchiki as nothing. Host received a reward and his spirit power broke through to the third level by 15%. Close black lens bracket. It broke through 5% again. Bai Ye nodded with satisfaction. Byakuya Kuchiki had a dark look on his face, and Bai Ye's ignorance made him even more angry. Next, I may not be able to control my strength. Said. Scatter. Senbon Sakura. The Zanpakutō in his hand instantly turned into countless densely packed pink fragments, flying cross-legged in the air, causing a harsh howling sound in the air. The wind whimpered. This is an extremely sharp sign. This is Byakuya Kuchiki's Shikai. The onlookers exclaimed, only when they faced Byakuya Kuchiki so intuitively could they feel the power of Byakuya even more. Only. At this time, someone suddenly shivered, and then tightened his tight clothes. Why did the weather suddenly get colder? Snow. Where did the snow come from? And it's still ice blue. Everyone looked up. I saw snowflakes floating in the sky, and the edges of the icy blue snowflakes reflected the cold light under the sun. In just an instant, heavy snow fell in the sky. There are so many snowflakes that it's impossible to measure them. Judging from their numbers, they even far surpass Byakuya Kuchiki's Senbon Sakura. Hey, is this the legendary Zanpakutō that can change the weather? How can a mere snowflake compete with a real blade? A trace of determination appeared in Byakuya Kuchiki's eyes. Subsequently, his body flashed and he rushed towards Bai Ye. Countless pink blades wrapped around his body, like a pink torrent, full of unstoppable momentum. Only, facing Byakuya Kuchiki's attack, Bai Ye's expression remained unchanged and he just waved his hand gently. Suddenly, countless ice blue snowflakes turned into huge ice blue storms in the sky. Captain-level Reiatsu soars into the sky. Under this captain-level power, everyone onlookers fell silent. Even though their bodies were cold, they couldn't even do anything to keep warm. Just for a moment, everyone was suppressed, and Byakuya Kuchiki, located in the center of Reiatsu, is like falling into sticky oily water, and every move is met with great resistance. Third-class spiritual power. Although he has only entered the third level for the first time, Bai Ye's Shikai can increase Reiatsu 20 times. Now he is even comparable to some senior captains who have been involved in the third-level spiritual power field for many years. Such spiritual power. Yamamoto Genryusai on the high platform also narrowed his eyes slightly. Bai Ye is just Shikai, but the spiritual power has doubled 20 times. This is unique in the entire history of Soul Society. Even when I was young, I couldn't reach this level. At the same time, the huge Reiatsu instantly melted into the snowflakes in the sky. The snowflakes, which were originally sharp, now revealed a texture like gold and iron, full of indestructible aura. Infinite blue snowflakes wrap up all the Byakuya Kuchiki in midair. Ding ding ding. The sound of gold and iron clashing sounded. Those countless Senbon Sakura were invincible against those snowflakes. The ice-blue snowflakes ran rampant and tore everything apart arbitrarily. Countless Senbon Sakura's blades were shattered in an instant. In just an instant, the Senbon Sakura beside Byakuya Kuchiki disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Subsequently, there were bursts of sounds of sharp blades piercing flesh. At the same time, mixed with Byakuya Kuchiki's dull growl. Not long after, the snowflakes dispersed. Countless snowflakes are still floating freely in the air. And in the field, there was one more bloody person. At this time, the blood on Byakuya Kuchiki's body flowed freely like a stream, gathering on the ground to form a lake of blood. And on him, there were horrible tiny wounds everywhere. It was densely packed and looked extremely miserable. If he hadn't used all his spiritual energy to defend against the snowflakes at the last moment, and if these snowflakes invaded his body, he might be a corpse now. On the square, everyone was stunned and their jaws dropped. They thought Byakuya Kuchiki might lose, but they didn't expect it to happen so quickly. So fast. Subsequently, they looked at Bai Ye with horrified eyes. I saw that Bai Ye's face was not red and he was out of breath. At this juncture, he was still thinking about drinking. The offensive just now seemed to be nothing to consume for him. Is this the Zanpakutō that can change the sky? It's really terrifying. Every snowflake is as sharp as the sharpest blade. Bai Ye's Shikai completely crushed Byakuya Kuchiki's Shikai. Everyone shook their heads slightly. In fact, Byakuya Kuchiki's Shikai is already more powerful than imagined, comparable to an active captain-level Shikai. Unfortunately, he met Bai Ye, the even more terrifying monster. Hateful. Listening to the discussions outside the court, Byakuya Kuchiki breathed more heavily. Although every wound on his body hurt, it could not dampen his fighting spirit. Today, I will let you see the real Bankai. 022. Bankai. Senbon Sakura. Advertise here. Byakuya Kuchiki was covered in blood. However, he still stood up, and the amount of Reiatsu on his body increased tenfold in an instant. The endless momentum soars into the sky. The surrounding ground was full of cracks, and the small trees not far away were even broken at the waist. The students who were watching the battle hurriedly retreated into the distance, fearing that they would be affected by this powerful momentum. Did I hear that right, Bankai? Everyone stared at Byakuya Kuchiki with their eyes wide open, as if they were looking at a monster, their eyes filled with disbelief. To know, the requirement for becoming a captain, in addition to having captain-level Reiatsu, is to be able to master Bankai proficiently. And how could Byakuya Kuchiki, just a student, master this power? It's simply heaven-defying. Shinigami. Shikai Reiatsu is doubled 5 to 10 times. And Bankai, Reiatsu doubled again 5 to 10 times. Original. Byakuya Kuchiki's Reiatsu was still suppressed by Bai Ye. At this time, his power gradually became equal to that of Bai Ye. Bankai. Senbon Sakura Kajiyoshi. Byakuya Kuchiki spoke in a low voice, holding the knife behind his back, and then let go of it lightly. Senbon Sakura fell vertically to the ground and disappeared as if merging with the ground. And beside him, it was densely packed with 2 rows of blades standing upright. Then the 2 rows of blades turned into butterflies, flying away at will. Judging from their number, they were simply countless, and they were about to fill the entire world. The same number as the snowflakes flying in the sky. Bai Ye Snowflake's numerical advantage is gone. And Bai Ye. He still looked lazy, but gently pressed the handle of the knife with his right hand. It seems, it was the butterfly effect caused by his own time travel that allowed Byakuya Kuchiki to understand Bankai in advance. The battle just now, from beginning to end, Bai Ye didn't even touch Zanpakutō. With just a thought, Zanpakutō Shikai himself, changing the sky. And now, he is ready to draw his sword. Below, everyone watched the fight between the two with nervous expressions. If Bai Ye had no other means, the outcome of this battle would still be unknown. I admit that you are a good opponent, but you have aroused my anger. This is the lesson I will teach you. Even though Byakuya Kuchiki was bleeding all over his body, his eyes became extremely bright at this moment. He reached out casually, and a cold Zanpakutō appeared in his hand. As he waved the handle lightly, countless blades scattered in the air gathered crazily in the air as if they had souls. Subsequently, then they gathered into 2 sharp thorns and stabbed at Bai Ye fiercely. In just an instant, he arrived in front of Bai Ye. Looking at where it attacked, it was Bai Ye's locks and soul sleep. This is Shinigami's Achilles heel. Once it is destroyed, at least the spiritual power will be dispersed and it will become a useless person, or at worst, it will die directly. Byakuya Kuchiki, this is with the intention of abolishing Bai Ye. At this time, below, everyone's heart tightened. Some were timid and even covered their eyes. What's the situation? Isn't this a discussion? Why did Byakuya Kuchiki take such a heavy blow? At the same time, on the high platform, Captain Hiroku Shunsui, Jashiro Yukitaki both looked at Yamamoto Genryusai. Old man Yamamoto's expression remained unchanged, he just looked down casually. His whole person revealed the demeanor of a strong man and the aura of strategizing. Everything that happens below is under his control. Don't worry, Byakuya Kuchiki's Bankai isn't quite there. Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni said softly. Bai Ye, there is no fear of life. Since Byakuya Kuchiki's Bankai is not perfect, after all, it seems that he has not mastered it for a long time, and he cannot accurately control the position of the attack. Under his observation, Bai Ye's locks and body sleep would not be harmed at all. At most, he would be seriously injured and would have to lie in bed for a few months. Only, if Bai Ye loses, then, the things he promised before were naturally empty words. The opportunity for the strongest freshman to graduate early will also be transferred to Byakuya Kuchiki. He really wants Bai Ye to die. Haha, it would be an honor for a mere Rukongai civilian to die in the hands of Lord Byakuya. It's such an honor, why don't you die? In the square. Everyone who was watching the battle was talking a lot. Some civilian students from Rukongai and students from noble families even started to quarrel. Matsumoto Rangaku, Lisa Yakinamaru and others had worries in their eyes. Matsumoto Rangaku wanted to rush into the battlefield, but Bai Ye and Byakuya Kuchiki's Reiatsu was too heavy. Even if she tried her best, she could approach the battlefield at a snail's pace. Ichimaru Jin's originally narrowed eyes actually opened a gap now, and he looked at the battle between Bai Ye and Byakuya Kuchiki with an inexplicable expression. And Shiba Kuzuku looked at Yamamoto Genryusai on the high platform. She knew in her heart that if the two of them were allowed to continue fighting, their lives would probably be in danger. She couldn't understand why Lord Yamamoto Genryusai didn't stop it. To know, these two people are rare talents in Soul Society. If something goes wrong, it will be a loss for the entire Soul Society. But, even how she looked, Yamamoto on the high platform did not have any intention of taking action, but was full of a strategizing attitude. 2. With the strength of Captain Yamamoto, he will definitely take action to separate the two at the critical moment. It's impossible to cause loss of life. Shiba Konkaku also understood Captain Yamamoto's intention at this time. He wanted the two to fight to their heart's content and then choose the strongest genius. Bai Ye Reiatsu is amazing. Byakuya Kuchiki masters Bankai. Both of them have the qualifications to become the strongest new student. At this time, in the battlefield, there was a harsh howling sound in the air. Countless pink blades like sakura flowers poured crazily towards Bai Ye. Moreover, two pink sakura flowers that converged into a cone-like shape, moving up and down, locked the position of Bai Ye's knot and body sleep. If it can hit, Bai Ye will shed his skin even if he doesn't die. However, in the face of such a fierce offensive, Bai Ye still looked calm. He even held the familiar wine gourd in his left hand and pressed the Zanpakuto's handle with his right hand. There was no trace of panic in the whole person. Even if a ruthless offensive is coming, it can't make his mood fluctuate in the slightest. Snort. Pretend to be a ghost. Byakuya Kuchiki snorted and speeded up, appearing in front of Bai Ye in an instant. The huge Reiatsu pours wildly. The flow of the air was greatly affected, gently blowing the broken hair on Bai Ye's forehead. The endless pink sakura flower blades wrap all of Bai Ye. Byakuya Kuchiki's eyes were cold, as if he saw Bai Ye falling to the ground with serious injuries, and Suojiya and Po Sleep being severely injured. 023. Bai Ye, stop. Advertise here. Boom, boom. The place where Bai Ye was suddenly collapsed. Countless pink sakura flower blades are cutting like crazy there. The ground made of boulders instantly became riddled with holes. The extremely sharp blade penetrated deeply into the earth. This blow, it has reached the captain level. Debris was flying in the field, and everyone looked with wide eyes, only to see countless cracks and cuts on the ground. Although it was very powerful, there was no trace of Bai Ye. Where's Bai Ye? Where did Bai Ye go? A trace of doubt appeared in everyone's eyes. Could it be that Bai Ye could disappear out of thin air? Even captain-level Shunko can't do this. Snowflakes continued to drift in the air. Byakuya Kuchiki looked at the empty ground with a slightly dazed expression. He was the closest to Bai Ye, so he could naturally feel that Bai Ye had just disappeared. He had never heard of Soul Society, someone with such means. But, snowflakes are still flying in the sky. A little bit of icy blue snowflakes fell on Byakuya Kuchiki's forehead and neck. A snowflake suddenly shattered. From it came a burst of devastating Reiatsu. Without any warning, Bai Ye suddenly appeared behind Byakuya Kuchiki, holding an ice blue long knife with cyan patterns all over it. With a calm expression on his face, the sword in his hand drew an icy blue line in the air, and in an instant it came to Byakuya Kuchiki's neck. At the same time, on the high platform, Yamamoto Genryusai, who has always been strategizing and not falling even if the mountain collapses, first had a flash of doubt in his eyes, and then saw Bai Ye suddenly appear. It seemed like he thought of something terrible. The whole person stood up suddenly. Ryujin Jaka. The crutch in his hand instantly burst into flames. The jet black death domination uniform fell off, revealing a body full of scars but with crisscrossing muscles. The whole person turned into a blazing fire and rushed towards Byakuya Kuchiki at great speed. This is Shunko who has cultivated to the ultimate level. It only takes a blink of an eye to reach Byakuya Kuchiki. Bai Ye, stop. Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni's old voice sounded, and his eyes seemed to be igniting with blazing flames. The speed of the whole person was increased to the limit, and the spiritual power of the strongest soul society could not be controlled to leak out. Suddenly, the situation suddenly changed, and everyone felt as if a huge mountain was weighing on their hearts, as if facing the fear above, they could not raise the slightest resistance. Just a hint of this surging coercion made all the students feel the feeling of death, as if they were about to be crushed and annihilated in the next moment. This is the intimidating power of the strongest Shinigami in millennia. Even if only a part of his strength is revealed, it is enough to far surpass an ordinary captain. Only, under this pressure, Bai Ye turned a deaf ear. The blade in your hand cuts everything and destroys everything. The pressure of Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni had no influence on him at all. Next moment, PFF'd, a sound. The ice blue blade passed directly through Byakuya Kuchiki's neck. A touch of blood splattered, and then a ball-like head rolled on the ground. The headless corpse fell softly to the ground, and the overflowing blood condensed into a lake on the ground, with steam rising. Right now, Yamamoto Genryusai also arrived, and the scorching heat from his body melted the ice and snow in the sky, making the whole world feel like a heavy rain. He was stunned as he held up Ryujin Jaka. The strategizing expression disappeared, and there was still a hint of shock in his eyes, staring at Bai Ye as if nothing had happened, and Byakuya Kuchiki's body on the ground. Pattering rain fell on the top of his head, but he didn't bother to wipe it away now. Byakuya Kuchiki, just die. Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni's heart was beating crazily. Even though he was the captain and held a high position, his brows were furrowed into the character, Shuan, at this moment. Bai Ye, he actually dared to take action. This is one of the four nobles, the heir of the Kuchiki family. Yamamoto has already predicted that next, there will be a big earthquake in the entire Seireitei. Kuchiki Silver Bell will never give up. And the initiator of all this is Bai Ye. At this time, on the square, everyone was stunned, mouths wide open, as if struck by lightning, looking straight at Bai Ye and the headless corpse on the ground. Their hearts were filled with unrealistic feelings, and some people even rubbed their eyes, trying to make sure they were right. Everything that just happened was like a rabbit rising and a falcon falling. In just a few seconds, Byakuya Kuchiki, who had the upper hand, was directly beheaded by Bai Ye. All of these, it's all like a dream. This sparring resulted in lives. Even Captain Yamamoto personally took action and couldn't stop it. Bai Ye, what methods were used? Just now, how did Bai Ye suddenly disappear and then appear again? It's all so magical. Now, everyone felt a little gloomy in their hearts, and a feeling that a storm was coming was brewing in their hearts. Bai Ye broke the news this time. As a commoner, he killed nobles and was even the successor of one of the four nobles. In the hierarchical Soul Society, this is something that is simply unthinkable. In fact, in the entire history of Soul Society, it is extremely explosive. Bai Ye's strength is certainly terrifying, but he does things too impulsively. Below, Matsumoto Rangaku looked worried and shook his head slightly. Bai Ye defeated Byakuya, which is a true captain-level strength, and his shunpo is different from ordinary people, there are no traces or precursors at all. It can be said, after this battle, Bai Ye has become famous and has solidified his reputation as captain-level combat power. He also achieved the title of Soul Society's #1 genius. Only, he actually killed Byakuya Kuchiki, disrupting the entire situation. No one could predict the next development. The new students are really fierce. Shiba Kaien's pupils shrank violently at this time. What just happened had already set off a big earthquake in her heart. As for Ichimaru Jin, the smile on his lips had already frozen. He squinted his eyes and opened them as wide as possible. Looking straight at Bai Ye, he seemed to be looking at some ferocious beast, a peerless fierce man. Fierce. So fierce. Dare to kill Byakuya Kuchiki, was he really just a commoner from Rukongai before? On the high platform, Hiroku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki also had their eyes widened as they looked down, feeling a sense of absurdity in their hearts. My drinking buddy really has a character. Hiroku Shunsui's mouth twitched slightly. Death of Byakuya Kuchiki. No one could have imagined it, but Bai Ye did just that. 024. Consequences. I'll kill him, that's all. Advertise here. Quiet. In the square, there was silence. Everyone was shocked by this scene and their scalps were numb. Bai Ye, did he really not think about the consequences of killing Byakuya Kuchiki? You know, the current head of the Kuchiki family, Kuchiki Ginling, is still the captain of the 6th division, and the Kuchiki family, as one of the four nobles, has extremely terrifying influence in the entire Soul Society. Can Bai Ye really withstand the crazy revenge from the Kuchiki family? Time passed bit by bit. At this time, Yamamoto Genryusai had put away Reiatsu, and Ryujin Jaka had turned into a crutch again, held in his hand. Bai Ye also put away his Zanpakutō with a calm face. Even if he did such a huge thing, he could not see any mood swings. Even, up to now, Bai Ye was still holding the wine gourd and took a sip directly, and his whole body returned to his drunken look. Seeing Bai Ye like this, even Yamamoto Genryusai couldn't help but marvel at Bai Ye's strong mental endurance. Only, he still sighed softly, you shouldn't be like this. Do you know what the consequences will be if you kill Byakuya Kuchiki? As a result of, he has murderous intentions, I will kill him, that's all. Bai Ye said calmly. Just, Byakuya Kuchiki focuses on attacking his own not, sleeping with murderous intent. For such an opponent, Bai Ye would naturally not spare his life. As for Byakuya Kuchiki's identity and the consequences of killing him. No matter what, kill first and then talk. Bai Ye lazily took a sip of wine, not to mention that he had Taishu Flash Goddess. As long as he thought about it, the entire Soul Society would be at his mercy. It can be said, Taishu Flash Goddess is not only elusive in battle, but his running ability is also top-notch. This matter can only be left to Central 46 for judgment. You cannot leave Seireitei during this period, waiting for the results of Central 46. Yamamoto Genryusai looked at Bai Ye seriously. As for graduating early, or joining Gotei 13, they are nothing compared to Byakuya Kuchiki. He did not take action against Bai Ye. After all, Byakuya Kuchiki had nothing to do with him. Yamamoto had no reason to take action. Listening to Yamamoto's words, Bai Ye just looked at him casually. Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, the captain of first generation Gotei 13 and the strongest Shinigami in 1,000 years. Bankai has the strongest fire element Zanpakutō, Ryujin Jaka, and the legendary Ryujin Jaka's Bankai is comparable to the core temperature of the sun. If it takes too long, it can evaporate the entire Soul Society's water. It can be said that it is a real-world destroying combat power. Even Hogyoku Aizen or Yhwach are extremely fearful of old man Yamamoto's combat prowess. Only, as he grows older, Mr. Yamamoto has become more and more old-fashioned and has lost the vigor of his youth. They just want to keep their 1/3 of an acre of land and uphold justice on their own territory. As for the nobles and Central 46, they selectively ignored it. I also subconsciously wanted to ask Central 46 for their opinion on killing Byakuya Kuchiki. Bai Ye shook his head gently. The current Soul Society has long been corrupted, and Central 46 and the great nobles are the most corrupted classes. Is Central 46 really a fair and impartial judicial institution? In the original work, one of the 4 nobles and the heir to the Tsunayashiro family, Tsunayashiro Tokunada, killed his colleagues and his wife, but Central 46 did not give him a corresponding punishment, just a mild punishment. It can be said, Central 46 is not impartial and selfless, they only safeguard the interests of the aristocracy. Those Rukongai civilians cannot be called people. In their eyes, they can only be said to be a resource or a thug. And in the original work, the most correct thing Aizen did was to kill all the old-fashioned members of Central 46. Although Central 46 was rebuilt later, Aizen's appearance also dealt a heavy blow to the stagnant Soul Society. Let Soul Society regain its vitality. At this time. After Yamamoto finished speaking, he waited for Bai Ye's reply. Bai Ye looked at Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni with a solemn expression, just waved his hand, and then left directly. Below, all the students consciously made a way for Bai Ye, and looked at Bai Ye with awe. But he is a fierce man who dares to kill even Byakuya Kuchiki. Who dares to provoke him without being wise? Bai Ye walked away in a hurry. Only the mess all over the ground, the stunned people, and the body of Byakuya Kuchiki with blood on the ground were left behind. Not long after, Bai Ye returned home. In his hand was the sake he bought on the road. Although it was not as strong as the wine in his previous life, it still had a flavor. Right now, boom. The door was pushed open hard, and 2 figures rushed in hurriedly. One is a dark-skinned beauty with a figure as strong and graceful as a leopard, and the other has 2 big braids hanging on her chest. The gentleness on her face is obvious, and her chest is even more revealing. Shihouin Yoruichi flashed, grabbed Bai Ye's shoulders, looked up and down, and breathed a sigh of relief after confirming that nothing was wrong with him. Aside, Yunohana Retsu also looked at Bai Ye and found that his face was normal and his hand that was holding the handle of the knife was loosened. A light green light enveloped Bai Ye. Yunohana Retsu used Kaido to confirm that there was nothing wrong with Bai Ye, and then nodded gently. The news about the battle between Bai Ye and Byakuya Kuchiki spread very quickly. Naturally, they heard about it and hurried over. This is a life and death fight between 2 people. And if Bai Ye killed Byakuya, he would inevitably be injured. As for Byakuya, Yoruichi had no contact with him. Originally, Yoruichi wanted to be Byakuya's teacher, but after Yunohana Retsu adopted Bai Ye, Yoruichi, who had always had a good relationship with Yunohana Retsu, rejected the Kuchiki family's request and came to serve as Bai Ye's teacher. After so many years of getting along day and night, she has long regarded Bai Ye as a relative. As for Yunohana Retsu, he has no contact with the Kuchiki family. She and Kuchiki Ginling have an ordinary relationship as colleagues, and Kuchiki Ginling has always regarded himself as a great noble, and has always had prejudices against captains like them who were born in Rukongai. Bai Ye killed Byakuya Kuchiki, which made her feel uneasy at all. 025. Seireitei is shocked. Advertise here. But, Yoruichi on the side frowned after confirming that Bai Ye was fine. Bai Ye, what you did this time was a big disaster. Byakuya Kuchiki. The young head of the Kuchiki family is one of the 4 nobles. As the young head of the Shihouin family, Yoruichi naturally knows what kind of energy a noble of this level possesses. The Shihouin family alone is known as the God-given weapon fan. Not only does it possess many powerful and strange weapons, but it also has hundreds of vassals from small and medium-sized nobles, large and small. And, in Gotei 13, he also manages the 2nd division and has an army of his own. The Kuchiki family, as a family with the same name as the Shihouin family, naturally has its own heritage. Now Bai Ye and the Kuchiki family have formed an everlasting feud. If Kuchiki Yinling takes revenge at all costs, I'm afraid Bai Ye will be in danger. Not to mention, the trial of Central 46 was also not ordered. But, hear all this. There was no fear on Bai Ye's face. He just took a sip of wine and savored the fragrance of the wine. Open black lens bracket ding. Close black lens bracket. Congratulations to host. After doing something big, he stayed calm in the face of danger and drank quietly. Host's spiritual power broke through to the 3rd level by 20%. Close black lens bracket. Myself a few days ago. I just broke through the 3rd level of spiritual power, and in just a few days, I broke through 20% again. 2nd class spiritual power is not out of reach. Arrived at the 2nd class Lingwei. Even among captain level combatants, he is considered an absolute powerhouse. Now, Hiroku Shunsui, Jashiro Yukitaki, Unohana Retsu, are probably at this level. In the later stages of the plot, if they do not perish, they may grow to the level of 1st class spiritual power. Now, 1st class Lingwei. It is Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni. As for Aizen and Ichigo Muzuki, they both broke through the limits of Shinigami and reached a level above the 1st level of spiritual power. Only, old man Yamamoto's Ryujin Jaka is so pervert that it can destroy the entire world. So even after Aizen merged with Hogyoku and Reiatsu surpassed Yamamoto, he was still extremely afraid of the old man Yamamoto. During the battle at Karakura town, even the fire extinguisher, Wanda Wise was created specifically to target old man Yamamoto. Bai Ye, you are really not afraid of anything. Yoruichi looked at Bai Ye and gently held his forehead. At this time, Bai Ye did not show any fear and was still drinking calmly. Even she couldn't help but admire Bai Ye's mentality. It's okay. On the side, Unohana Retsu patted Bai Ye's shoulder gently. You will be at Seireitei during this period, and you don't have to go anywhere. If the Kuchiki family wants to take action against you, you can come to me at any time. Quote. What's more, this matter is not your fault. Speaking of which. A hint of coldness appeared in Unohana Retsu's eyes. Byakuya Kuchiki wanted to kill Bai Ye, but Bai Ye killed him, which was just self-defense. If Central 46 and the Kuchiki family don't let Bai Ye go, then she can let everyone know that she is not only the captain of the 4th team, but also the 1st generation Kenpachi. And Bai Ye. Then he smiled softly. You don't have to worry about my safety. I naturally have my own means. Yeah, Yoruichi and Unohana Retsu nodded in unison. They also knew about Bai Ye's sudden disappearance and suspected space teleportation ability. This is simply not something Shinigami can control. Even the great Kidō leader of the Kidō community can teleport people into space, but he still has to make preparations beforehand and chant incantations. In combat, it cannot be used at all. And Bai Ye broke this limitation. But, the two of them didn't ask any more questions. After all, only you know a person's strength. Even if you are close to someone, it would be against the rules to inquire about it. But, right now, a voice came from the door. Sir Bai Ye, the Maple Leaf Pavilion service you ordered is here. Subsequently, there was a burst of fragrance, and several good-looking girls in cool clothes walked in with various kinds of wine and delicacies in their hands. Don't worry, I just called for the food and dancers from Maple Leaf Pavilion. They will be here soon. Let's have a meal together. Bai Ye waved to the two girls. Yoruichi covered his eyes in despair. Really, nothing can stop Bai Ye from enjoying. A few people ate some casually, and Unohana Retsu and Yoruichi received the message and looked at Bai Ye. Notice from the chief captain, all captains are now attending the captain-level meeting. And at this juncture, it's almost ready to gather all the captains together to discuss something. Just when Bai Ye was drinking and having fun, Seireitei and even the entire Soul Society exploded. Bai Ye killed Byakuya Kuchiki head-on, and the news that he possessed a 3rd-level spiritual power spread like a storm throughout Soul Society. From the elderly to the children, Bai Ye's name has been heard in their ears these days. Everyone was discussing crazily, and the entire Soul Society was like a dynamite barrel being ignited, with waves of imminent aura hovering throughout the entire Soul Society. Bai Ye, isn't that one of the 3 special freshmen of Spiritual Arts Academy? That Byakuya Kuchiki was also a special freshman, but he was directly killed by Bai Ye. People were talking a lot. Now, Bai Ye is undoubtedly the number 1 freshman. In fact, he has now secured the title of Soul Society's number 1 genius. Everyone agrees that he definitely has potential comparable to Captain Yamamoto. This Bai Ye is really going to be heaven-defying. He's just a student, but he actually has captain-level combat power. This is still secondary. Shouldn't the biggest concern now be that Byakuya Kuchiki was killed? There was a hint of worry in someone's eyes. Byakuya Kuchiki's identity is known to everyone. After his death, the Kuchiki family will definitely go crazy. There will even be a huge earthquake in the entire Seireitei. Since the founding of Seireitei, when has the young family head, one of the 4 great nobles, been killed in the street? Even if the young master is injured, it will arouse the anger of the 4 nobles. But, now, Bai Ye has set a precedent. History was made. No one doubts that as one of the 4 nobles, the Kuchiki family has tremendous power. Bai Ye is just a commoner from Rukongai, what can he do to resist? Even though his sister is Unohana Retsu, he was adopted by Unohana Retsu after all. Is Unohana Retsu really willing to fight against the Kuchiki family for Bai Ye? Not to mention, a captain is still not enough for the giant Kuchiki family. Everyone is either envious, jealous, sarcastic, or has nothing to do with their own business. Now, Bai Ye is already the center of the entire Seireitei, and everyone's eyes are focused here, waiting for the subsequent development. 026. Bai Ye, you must pay the price. Advertise here. Spiritual Arts Academy. At this time, the semi-annual test had just passed, but no one had any relaxed expressions on their faces. Ichimaru Jin, Shiba Kong is now practicing from morning to night every day. It seems that he is full of energy and wants to shorten the distance with Bai Ye. Matsumoto Rangaku, Lisa Yakinamaru and others were inquiring about Bai Ye every day, anxious about what would happen next. As for the other students, killing for life is a matter of course. What's more, the person Bai Ye killed was Lord Byakuya. Haha, Byakuya Kuchiki's previous attempt to kill Bai Ye was eaten by you. Bai Ye was just self-defense. Nobles, commoners and students were quarreling. The aristocratic student was born into a noble family and naturally sided with the Kuchiki family. As for civilian students, they are more inclined to Bai Ye. Even, some civilian students also regard Bai Ye as their role model. After all, Bai Ye is simply like a legend. Even though he was born in Rukongai, he only drank alcohol every day and did not practice spiritual practice. But, he is still the strongest genius in the entire Spiritual Arts Academy, and even the entire Soul Society. Although his sister is Unohana Retsu and has a close relationship with Shihouin Yoruichi, he has gone to the limit of being a civilian. It can be said, when the nobles are in power and high-end combat power is monopolized by the nobles, Bai Ye is the hope of the common people. Not to mention, killing a noble of Byakuya Kuchiki's caliber. I can't even think about it. But Bai Ye did it. And without any fear. This mentality alone is worthy of their admiration. In the field, the quarrel intensified. Some people even unleashed Reiatsu, almost starting a fight. Jing, regarding Bai Ye's matter, Central 46 will naturally come to judge. The teachers in the college could not sit still and stop these students. The most noisy people were imprisoned, and the matter was temporarily suppressed. Hey, Bai Ye is such a pity. In college, some teachers shook their heads slightly. They don't think Bai Ye can survive the revenge of the Kuchiki family. The best outcome is to be imprisoned in the maggot's nest or the prison of Gote 13. If he is sentenced to hundreds of years in prison. By the time Bai Ye comes out, his talent will have long been wasted. What else are you talking about, Soul Society's first genius? At the same time, a complex that covers an extremely large area and looks like a continuous palace. It was full of Shinigami who were either coming and going, or training seriously, wearing black Deathbuster uniforms. Pedestrians coming and going looked at this antique building with awe in their eyes. Gote 13 headquarters. The highest martial arts organization in Soul Society, every captain in it is at least a third-class spiritual power. Among them, Yamamoto Genryu Sai is the most powerful Shinigami in Soul Society and the strongest in 1,000 years. To the entire Soul Society, it is like a divine needle in the sea. Only, at this time, in the spacious conference room, there was a gloomy and depressing atmosphere. An old man with a hideous scar on his head, who looked like he was about to die, was leaning on a cane and watching the quarrel below expressionlessly. Bai Ye, you must pay the price. As a commoner, kill nobles. As a student, take action against classmates. I propose that Bai Ye be sent to Sokyoku Hill and sentenced to death. Below, an old man with white hair, a skinny appearance, and a pair of star pincers on his head spoke angrily. His body was trembling slightly, and his eyes were bloodshot. Captain of the 6th Division, Kuchiki Silver Bell. Life for a life. Ridiculous. Bai Ye was just in self-defense. Byakuya Kuchiki fought with him, but with murderous intent. Byakuya Kuchiki is only allowed to have murderous intent towards Bai Ye, but Bai Ye is not allowed to resist. How can there be such a truth in the world? Aside. Unohana Retsu, captain of the 4th Division, spoke calmly, but his eyes were filled with coldness. Originally, she was at odds with Kuchiki Ginling, but now that her brother is involved, she has to fight hard to protect him. Yoruichi, on the other hand, is on a united front with Unohana Retsu. Byakuya Kuchiki originally had murderous intentions towards Bai Ye. Now that he is killed, it is his own fault. What does it have to do with Bai Ye? In Seireitei, force is always respected, and the strong are respected. Now Byakuya is dead, but his skills are inferior to others. If he didn't have the intention to kill Bai Ye, he probably wouldn't be able to lose his life. Yoruichi, have you forgotten your identity? Kuchiki Yinling spoke in a low voice, staring at Shihouin Yoruichi with a pair of old eyes. She is a noble like him, but she is cheating and siding with the common people. This is simply unreasonable. That is, before Bai Ye, he seriously injured my subordinate Masaki Ichinos, causing him to lose the power of Shinigami. Now, as a commoner, he dares to kill a big noble. This person is murderous. No matter how talented he is, it is not a good thing for the Soul Society. Aside, Kenpachi, the rough and ugly-looking Kigenho, sneered. He originally had a grudge against Bai Ye, but now that Bai Ye has done such a big thing, his time to join Gotei 13 has been postponed indefinitely. If you want to avenge your subordinates, you must naturally side with Kuchiki Ginling. In the field, the quarrel became more and more intense. These are all captain-level figures. If they take action, it will be an extremely heavy blow to the entire Seireitei. As for Hirako Shinji, Jashiro Yukitaki, Shiba Ishin and other captains, they stood aside and maintained a neutral attitude. Enough. Looking at the quarreling people, Yamamoto Genryusai coughed lightly and hit the ground heavily with the crutch in his hand. There was a moment of silence in the field, and everyone looked at Yamamoto, waiting for his next instructions. As for Bai Ye, Central 46 will judge it for you. Please wait for now. Don't have pointless arguments here. Finished. Yamamoto turned around and left. Unohana Retsu, Kuchiki Ginling and others snorted coldly and walked out of the conference room one after another. Not long after, outside the conference room, Kuchiki Ginling and Kigenho Kenpachi come together, and now, they have a common enemy. We must not let Bai Ye go. Higashima Kenpachi clenched his fists tightly. The tragic situation of his men was constantly replayed in his mind, and a trace of anger appeared in his eyes. As for Kuchiki Ginling, there was a hint of gloom on his face. Original. If there is only one Unohana Retsu, he can use the energy of the Kuchiki family to remove Bai Ye without leaving a trace. Even if Unohana Retsu goes crazy, there is still a captain to suppress her. Only, unexpectedly, Yoruichi would support Bai Ye so much. The Shihouin family is one of the four major nobles like the Kuchiki family, and they have similar power. If it is fully carried out, those affiliated nobles and other elders of the Kuchiki family will never agree. After all, Byakuya is dead. They can't put too much effort into a dead person. Shanghai, it would be nice if you were still here. Kuchiki Yinling sighed softly, and a young figure flashed in his mind. Kuchiki Sound River. Born in Rukongai, the son-in-law of the Kuchiki family, he has captain-level strength at a young age, and his talent is definitely at the top level of Soul Society. Unfortunately, he was assassinated before, but he couldn't save him despite all his efforts, which resulted in him being sealed. If he was still here, he wouldn't have such a headache now. 027. Imprison the maggot nest for 100 years. Advertise here. At the same time, the island in the middle of the lake is surrounded by walls and there is only one road in and out. Central 46. Soul Society's highest judicial authority. Now, in a huge venue, a full 46 sages and judges gathered together. Now, there was silence in the field. Several people among them looked excited and wanted to say something, but they held back. Even if they joined Central 46, they were all from the Kuchiki family, or nobles affiliated with the Kuchiki family. Now that Byakuya is killed, they are naturally angry. Only, the conditions for joining Central 46 are to be absolutely fair and strict, and to take the interests of the entire Seireitei as their own responsibility. Even if they are from the Kuchiki family, they cannot show any obvious favoritism. Everyone, let's watch the battle footage of Byakuya Kuchiki and Bai Ye together. Above, one of the inquisitors spoke softly. Suddenly, on a curtain, the previous battle between Byakuya Kuchiki and Bai Ye began to play, and it only took a few minutes to finish. During the process, Bai Ye remained calm. Even though he seemed to be at a disadvantage, he disappeared in an instant and used an extraordinary shunpo to kill Byakuya Kuchiki instantly. This scene, even the well-informed Central 46 members couldn't help but cover their mouths and exclaim. Too powerful. This Bai Ye is even more powerful than when he killed Ajukas before. At least, he has never used this strange shunpo before. Is this really just the progress he has made in just a few days? Or is he hiding his clumsiness before? Everyone was talking, even the sages and judges from the Kuchiki family couldn't help but affirm Bai Ye's strength. Byakuya Kuchiki's defeat at his hands was really not unjust. Above, the judge also had bursts of exclamation hidden in his eyes, and he coughed lightly. Everyone, what do you think of Bai Ye's handling methods? Bai Ye is a civilian after all. If it were a big noble like Tsunayashiro Tokunada, at most it would just be an internal fight among the nobles and it would be easy to suppress it. But, the civilians beheaded the nobles and were the successors of one of the four nobles. This incident had a profound impact. Even Rukongai, the legend of Bai Ye was spread throughout the world at this time. If not handled properly, Bai Ye, as a benchmark, can even arouse the awakening of more civilians and fundamentally threaten the rule of the nobles. Severe punishment. Must be punished severely. The people from the Kuchiki family sounded angry. We propose that he be taken to Sokyoku Hill and use Sokyoku's punishment. Sokyoku. The strongest spear in Soul Society has the attack power of 1,000,000 Zanpakutō. Some sinners with the most heinous crimes will bear the punishment of Sokyoku and be burned to ashes in intense pain. But, it is rumored that Bai Ye is Unohana Retsu's younger brother and has a close relationship with Shihouin Yoruichi. Others shook their heads slightly. If Bai Ye is killed, regardless of whether it can succeed, even if it succeeds, the revenge from Unohana Retsu and the Shihouin family will not be a good thing for the entire Soul Society. This is a force that is enough to shock Soul Society. It would be okay if Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni was under their control, but unfortunately, although old man Yamamoto is older and more rigid, he is not someone they can call around and dispatch at will. What's more, Bai Ye also has that strange shunpo, which can disappear in an instant. Can you really catch it? If you can't catch it, it will affect the majesty of room 46. Someone continued. The others nodded secretly. After all, Byakuya Kuchiki is dead. For a dead person, of course the living person is more valuable. And if Bai Ye's ability to disappear instantly can be popularized in Soul Society, it will definitely bring the combat power of the entire Soul Society to a higher level. If Bai Ye contributes his ability to disappear instantly, it is in the hands of room 46. Above, the judge continued, with a hint of greed in his eyes. This method can definitely bring the power of room 46 to a higher level. For Gote 13, and less reliance on Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni. Even this kind of power, it is an innovation for the entire Soul Society. If Bai Ye popularizes it, he will definitely get the opportunity to join the Zero Division. Team Zero. After entering, you will become immortal. Rumor has it that the Zero Division has been there since the founding of the Seireitei, guarding the Soul King, and will never take action unless necessary, nor will it interfere with the Seireitei's decision-making. Yes, others, listening to the Inquisitor's suggestion, also had a trace of greed in their eyes. Instant transfer. This is their ability to discover. Maybe, Bai Ye also hides more abilities. Everyone gathered together and discussed wildly. It took a full day before they came to a conclusion. Let the Shihouin family be responsible for locking Bai Ye into the nest of maggots for 100 years. Make this decision. They have considered it. Letting the Shihouin family take responsibility is to test the Shihouin family's attitude towards Bai Ye and the relationship between them if they imprison Bai Ye. This means that their relationship is only superficial. Of course, they had a way to make Bai Ye spit out the ability to teleport in prison, and seal the Reiatsu all over his body so that he could not escape. If Bai Ye is still well outside, it represents the Shihouin family's determination to protect Bai Ye. Naturally, Bai Ye's plan needs to be figured out slowly. Not long after, Central 46's order spread throughout Soul Society. A few days later, Maple Leaf Pavilion is an asset of the Shihouin family in Seireitei. It integrates a flower restaurant and a restaurant. It is also the first choice for people to relax after a tiring work. Only, the consumption inside is high. Just a banquet is worth dozens to thousands of rings. Even some small nobles will go bankrupt if they come here often. At this time, in Maple Leaf Pavilion, everyone was talking a lot. I heard that Bai Ye was imprisoned in the maggot's nest, and the Shihouin family was responsible for the execution. However, it is only 100 years of imprisonment. It seems that even Central 46 is extremely afraid of the power behind Bai Ye. Everyone drinks. There was a sigh on his face. Even if Bai Ye is extremely talented, he will be imprisoned in the maggot's nest for 100 years, and his life will be changed when he comes out. Have no idea. Can I still be the #1 genius of Soul Society? No one doubted that Bai Ye could escape punishment. After all, as a commoner, if he can kill a noble and escape unscathed, then this commoner will be heaven-defying. But, just when everyone was talking, in front of the restaurant, a figure with a lazy face appeared holding a wine gourd. .028. My name is Feijun. Advertise here. Bai Ye walked into the restaurant. There was a hint of rosiness on his face, which was the result of being tipsy after drinking. The whole person was swaying, with a Zanpakutō hanging on his waist, and the broken hair on his forehead made his handsome face even more stunning. Penalty for Central 46. It was not painful at all, the Shihouin family simply ignored it and showed an attitude of protecting Bai Ye. But, even if someone really wants to capture Bai Ye into the nest of maggots, Bai Ye still has the life-saving skill of Taishu Flash Goddess. Recently, he has already appointed Shinigami to perform tasks in the present world, scattering snowflakes rich in his own spiritual power in the present world, except for Hawako Mundo, which is a bit difficult to deal with and needs to open the black cavity to enter. Soul Society. This world. In many corners, there is an ordinary snowflake scattered. Master Bai Ye. In the restaurant, Mama Song, who was in charge of receiving guests, had a smile on her face and quickly welcomed Bai Ye in. However, they have a close relationship with Miss Yoruichi, and even they, the distinguished guests of Maple Leaf Pavilion, must be treated with caution. The private room has been reserved for you. Mama San continued. Bai Ye nodded slightly and followed her mother up the stairs. Only, with the appearance of Bai Ye, the entire Maple Leaf Pavilion was suddenly silent. Everyone looked straight at Bai Ye, with an expression of disbelief in their eyes. Until Bai Ye walked into the restaurant. The entire Maple Leaf Pavilion exploded in an instant. Wah, what? That was Bai Ye just now. I saw that right. Everyone rubbed their eyes. He was sentenced by room 46 and imprisoned in the maggot's nest. How can he still show up here so arrogantly? It's simply unbelievable. It seems that although Bai Ye is a civilian, a terrifying force has gathered around him. Even the 46th room must be careful. Everyone looked at Bai Ye's back. There was a trace of awe in his eyes, and Vice Admiral Bai Ye was listed in his heart as one of the never-to-be-provoked objects. He can even show up arrogantly after killing Byakuya Kuchiki. If you offend him, there will definitely be no good consequences. Subsequently, the news of Bai Ye's appearance in Maple Leaf Pavilion spread like wildfire, causing crazy discussions throughout the Seireitei. Everyone was suspicious of the power behind Bai Ye. And the strength Bai Ye is showing now. If he continues to grow, I am afraid that after Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni abdicates in the future, Bai Ye is very likely to take over. This is also Soul Society, the genius who has the most hope of breaking through to the first level of spiritual power right now. At this time, Maple Leaf Pavilion, in a huge luxurious private room. Bai Ye lay lazily on the soft sofa, gently shaking a glass of wine in his hand. Aside, it was the maid in cool clothes who fed Bai Ye peeled grapes and various other delicacies from time to time. The sound of silk and bamboo reaches my ears. In front of them, a group of dancers were performing songs and dances. Bai Ye watched lazily, enjoying himself like an emperor. Imprisoned in a nest of maggots. To keep company with Kuretsuchi Mayuri. Although he could drink and become stronger in the nest of maggots, how could he be so comfortable here? Before, Yoruichi and others have analyzed the intention of Central 46, so Bai Ye can continue to live arrogantly, and as expected, after knowing this, Room 46 found out. It was only a symbolic fine of several thousand rings to the Shihouin family. There was not much pursuit at all. Sir Bai Ye, your strong wine. Right now, a soft female voice sounded, and a bottle of wine exuding a strong aroma was brought up. Bai Ye, on the other hand, looked at the maid who served him the liquor and frowned slightly. Why did this person look so similar to Rukia Kuchiki? Oh, Byakuya Kuchiki is dead. There will be no more Rukia Kuchiki, only Rukia. She is the heroine in the original novel and has Zanpakutō Soda no Shirayuki. Known as Soul Society's most beautiful Zanpakutō. Only, her strength in the later stage is just soy sauce, that is, an ordinary captain level. As for now, she's probably still in Rukongai, struggling to stay alive. In the future, he will be admitted to the Mao Spiritual Arts Academy, and after graduation, he will enter the real world to perform tasks. After meeting Kurosaki Ichigo, it represents the beginning of the original plot. And Rukia has a sister named Fei Jen. In the original work, Fei Jun died early, and the two daughters were never truly reunited. May I have your name? My name is Fei Jen. The girl with eyes as clear as the crimson sky said softly. Bai Ye nodded slightly. The girl left, but Bai Ye's eyes were still looking at her back with interest. It's really her, Fei Jun, as a female character who only appears in memories. The deepest impression on Bai Ye is her beauty-like cultivation and her skills in both martial arts and dancing. And Fei Jun dances, also known as Soul Society's most beautiful dance. In the original work, in order to find Rukia Kuchiki, she became ill and died early. Moreover, she also became the wife of Byakuya Kuchiki, but Byakuya Kuchiki is already dead, and now Hyjin doesn't know Byakuya Kuchiki at all. Master Bai Ye, are you interested in Fei Jun? On the side, Mama Sang looked at Bai Ye's expression and said cautiously, it doesn't matter the other girls in Maple Leaf Pavilion, but Fei Jun is just an ordinary waiter, not a maid or a dancer, and I don't know what she thinks. She has a sister left behind. Whenever she has a vacation, she will go to Rukongai to look for her sister. Even though she is the most beautiful woman in Maple Leaf Pavilion and has many suitors, she always refuses. It's just that if you take action in person, even Fei Jun might fall in love with you. Bai Ye waved his hand. Interrupted Mama San's words. Fei Jun is certainly good, but his primary goal now is to drink and become stronger. If the strength is insufficient. In the future, during the Aizen rebellion plot and the invasion of the Invisible Empire, I will be nothing more than fish on a sticky board. Bai Ye shook his head, and then took a sip of the liquor that Fei Jun had just served. Open black lens bracket ding. Close black lens bracket. Congratulations to host, for accepting Hyjin's service and drinking. Host Zanpakutō Lufeng Weishui unlocks Shikai, flowing wind. Close black lens bracket. Shikai, flowing wind. Bai Ye nodded slightly, feeling extremely satisfied. There is only one Shikai, Wei Shui. Although the strength is good, it is still weaker than the Bankai with famous swords such as Kaden Kyokutsu and Kyoka Suigetsu. If you add the flowing wind, you can double Shikai yourself. When paired with Wei Shui, the power exerted is definitely more than just 1 + 1 = 2. After all, the wind and snow have always complemented each other, and the two Shikai of my own are able to exert unprecedented power. 029. Full Shikai, Demon Sword Muramasa. Advertise here. Good. Very nice. The corners of Bai Ye's mouth curled up slightly. Then, he waved away the dancers and maids in the room. After a while, Bai Ye was the only one left in the room. Bai Ye stood up directly, went to the wall of the room, and knocked lightly a few times. Next moment, boom, the wall opened, revealing a dark passage. Bai Ye entered directly and soared into the air. After an unknown period of time, his feet felt the touch of the ground. Bai Ye looked around. I saw large areas of loess on the ground, as well as low peaks and cliffs. And high in the sky, there is a blue sky. There is so much space everywhere that you can't see the end at a glance. This is the training place founded by Shihouin Yoruichi and Urahara Kazuki. It was also where Yoruichi taught himself when he was his white hits and shunpo teacher. And now, you can also use this place to practice at any time. Bai Ye pulled out the Zanpakutō from his waist, and saw the blue lines on the ice blue blade twisting slightly, as if he was jumping for joy. The cyan texture looks brighter. After unlocking Shikai, Lu Feng, the entire Lu Feng Weishui has undergone considerable changes, and the sense of oppression exuded has become heavier. Now, Seireitei. News about Bai Ye's appearance spread like wildfire, and everyone knew that Bai Ye not only was not imprisoned in the maggot nest, but was even drinking and having fun in Maple Leaf Pavilion with arrogance. At Spiritual Arts Academy, many students were talking a lot, their hearts filled with wonder at Bai Ye and awe at the power behind him. Gotei 13, Yamamoto Genryu Sai is not surprising, after all, Central 46 is all about safeguarding the interests of the Seireitei and the nobility. Now Byakuya is dead, punishing Bai Ye will not help, it is better to keep him and let him contribute to Soul Society, which is the best decision to maximize benefits. Only, in a mansion that occupies a large area, has carved beams and painted buildings, and exudes a luxurious atmosphere. Snapped. A teacup was thrown hard and shattered into a puddle of powder on the ground. Kuchiki Yinling's eyes were red, as if he wanted to choose someone to devour. He looked at the elders and senior officials of the Kuchiki family in the room. I will never accept Central 46's decision. Even if we have to use the power of the Kuchiki family, we must seek justice for Byakuya. Kuchiki Yinling's beard stood up in anger. The person who killed his own grandson is now openly having fun outside. This is like a slap in the face of the Kuchiki family. There must be severe punishment. Yeah, this Bai Ye is so hateful. In the room, some elders were also outraged. However, other people frowned. Now, the Kuchiki family has already lost Byakuya, and even if they kill Bai Ye, it will only be a temporary success. What's more, if they can't kill Bai Ye, they will undoubtedly have enmity with Unohana Retsu and the Shihouin family. Is it worth doing this for a dead heir? To know. Even though Byakuya is dead, the Kuchiki family is not only the main family, but also the branch house. There are still talented boys in the branch house. Although not as good as Byakuya Kuchiki, he can still be cultivated as a successor. Master Yinling, please think twice. Some elders comforted Kuchiki Yinling and explained the pros and cons to him. Only, Kuchiki Yinling's eyes became increasingly gloomy. Each of these elders is here to protect their own interests. There are too few people who truly want to avenge Byakuya. Even if he is the head of the Kuchiki family, he cannot go against everyone's wishes. Kuchiki Yinling waved away all the elders impatiently. They had not been able to come up with a reason for Bai Ye's treatment. It would be great if Shanghai was still here. Kuchiki Yinling's eyes narrowed slightly, and a young figure flashed in his mind. Kuchiki Sound River. The son-in-law of the Kuchiki family, he made great contributions when killing the rebels. His talent in his youth was even comparable to that of Byakuya Kuchiki. Only, compared to the young Byakuya Kuchiki, the fourth level of Reiki is not yet able to master Bankai proficiently. Kuchiki Shanghai now has a senior captain level strength, and mastered the unpredictable Bankai. With his Bankai abilities, if we deal with Bai Ye. Think of this. Kuchiki Ginling came to the back of the family and walked into the secret room that only the clan leader could enter. There was only a Zanpakutō placed on the table. The blade was attached with a talisman and was tightly sealed at the top, preventing any spiritual power from escaping. The demon sword Muramasa. Kuchiki Yinling murmured softly, looking at Zanpakutō in front of him, a trace of determination appeared in his eyes. This sword is Kuchiki Shanghai's Zanpakutō, and it has its own thoughts, and has always wanted to save Kuchiki Shanghai. Only, due to the pressure from Central 46, he could only seal Kuchiki Shanghai with his own hands and seal his Zanpakutō in this secret room. But now, Central 46 treated Byakuya so unfairly. Then, he doesn't need to worry about anything. Think of this. Kuchiki Yinling took a deep breath, he knew that after making this decision, there would be no regrets. However, then, he still extended his hand. Stab, a sound. The seal on Yaodao Muramasa was directly torn to pieces. At the same time, Gotei 13, the base of the 11th Squadron. What did you say? Bai Ye escaped punishment. Kenpachi held the person who came to report the news in his hands. In front of his burly figure, the messenger looked like a child, with a look of fear in his eyes. Yes, Lord Gui Yancheng, Bai Ye is in Maple Leaf Pavilion now. Snort. Kenpachi snorted coldly and let go of his hand. The poor messenger ran away, fearing that the grumpy man would go mad again. Bai Ye. Higashima Kenpachi's tone was cold. At the same time, my mind changed and I realized that this was my chance. The grudges of my subordinates must be avenged. If Bai Ye pleads guilty and commits suicide, then he can't say anything, but now, Bai Ye is at large. So, as the captain of the 11th Squadron, it is reasonable for him to take action to capture the prisoner. When Bai Ye enters Gotei 13's prison, isn't he just allowed to do whatever he wants? Think of this. A cold, ugly smile appeared on Kenpachi's face. Old Kuchiki's own grandson died, and he was still submissive. Now, he wants me to avenge his grandson. Kuchiki Ginling's delay in taking action already made him very unhappy. In his opinion, behind Bai Ye was just a weak captain of the 4th Division, which was not worth mentioning at all. As for the Shihouin family, they themselves are in Gotei 13. With old man Yamamoto in charge, even though the Shihouin family is one of the 4 nobles, they cannot act recklessly on his territory. 030. Absolute speed, splitting space. Advertise here. Somebody come. Gather and head to Maple Leaf Pavilion. Higashima Kenpachi's words were gloomy. Suddenly, everyone in the entire 11th Squadron Station became busy. Not long after, hundreds of members of the 11th Division walked out of the station in a mighty manner, walked through the streets and alleys of Seireitei, and walked in the direction of Maple Leaf Pavilion. At the same time, other squads, watching Squad 11 in full action, started talking a lot. What is this Kigenho doing? Hiroko Shinji covered his forehead with a look of pain on his face. Why did you let such an idiot become Kenpachi? The previous Mole City Kenpachi, Karyashiki Kenpachi, which one is not better than this waste? Hiroko Shinji shook his head. Pity. Mole Castle Kenpachi was imprisoned in hell because his abilities were too dangerous and he killed Karyashiki Kenpachi. There was no one available in the 11th Division at the moment, so Kenpachi Kigenho took the opportunity. Now, Higan Castle Kenpachi left Rukongai's Hollow to clean up, and actually used the power of the entire 11th Squadron, and he didn't know what to do. Captain, the direction they are going seems to be Maple Leaf Pavilion. According to legend, Bai Ye is also there now. A team member said cautiously from the side. Maple Leaf Pavilion, the Shihouin family's industry. Hiroko Shinji nodded. And, Bai Ye is also there. It seems that Kenpachi went there to avenge his men. Oh, is there such an interesting thing? A man with an unshaven beard wearing a sexy pink feather fabric and a bamboo hat had an interesting smile on his lips. In that case, let's go take a look together. Hiroko, Aizen, are you coming too? Hiroku Shunsui looked at Hiroko Shinji and Aizen beside him and said lazily. That's fine. Hiroko Shinji nodded. At the same time, he looked at Hiroku Shunsui with appraising eyes. Rumor has it that Hiroku Shunsui and Bai Ye are drinking buddies and have a good relationship. Now it seems that Hiroku Shunsui is preparing to go to Bai Ye because he is worried that Bai Ye will be harmed. After all, Higashima Kenpachi is an idiot but not very strong. But he is also a captain who has participated in the selection, has a third-class spiritual power and a complete Bankai. There is a world of difference between his strength and that of Byakuya Kuchiki, a student. Even if Bai Ye has captain-level power, he will not be able to Bankai after all, and will probably be suppressed by Kenpachi Kionjo. Since Captain Hiroko agrees, then I will accompany the two captains. Aizen Sosuke, who was behind Hiroko Shinji, had a slight smile on his lips and gently pushed up his square-framed glasses. He looked gentle and elegant, like a scholar. It makes people feel like a spring breeze. Hiroko, you really have a good vice-captain. Hiroku Shunsui said softly. Hiroko Shinji just smiled noncommittally. This Aizen. The coldness he showed in his daily life was completely different from the coldness in his heart. Only he could see Aizen's wolfish ambitions and keep him under surveillance. Only, it has never been clear about Aizen's actions and his purpose. Otherwise, he can report it directly to Central 46 and control Aizen. At this time, Maple Leaf Pavilion, underground training ground. Bai Ye gently stroked the long knife in his hand, with a sharp look in his eyes. Liberate, Lu Feng, Wind Soul Ultimate Blade. Suddenly, the cyan pattern on the long knife seemed to come alive, revealing a dazzling cyan light. At the same time, between heaven and earth. The wind howled, and the starting point of green light shone around Bai Ye. Even in a bright environment, he looked extremely conspicuous. Green light is like green dragons, flying and circling around Bai Ye, mixed with terrifying wind. With the slightest movement of Bai Ye's blade, PFF'd. A few hundred meters away, on a hill, without any warning, a deep crack suddenly appeared. Judging from the speed of the wind, even Shunko cannot match it. This is the ultimate in speed. Good. Bai Ye nodded with satisfaction. If we say that the absolute zero of Shikai's snow return, as countless sharp snowflakes, it represents a wide range of field control and a wide range of attack methods. So, the Wind Soul Ultimate Blade of Lu Feng represents the ultimate of wind speed, the ultimate of speed. To know, just relying on the countless snowflakes that return snow, even if the attack power is superior, the opponent still has the possibility to dodge. Lu Feng, on the other hand, has the speed of ultimate, but its attack power is insufficient and cannot even split a hill. Now, match both. It's simply 1 plus 1 is greater than 2. His combat power has increased exponentially. Shikai, Lu Feng Weishui. Bai Ye murmured softly in his heart. Suddenly, boom. An unbridled spiritual power rose into the sky as if it was about to tear the sky apart. The earth was shaking crazily, and spider-web-like cracks suddenly opened on the ground centered on Bai Ye, bottomless. Even the gravel was ground into the tiniest powder and scattered on the ground, blown randomly by the breeze. Bai Ye's original spiritual power increased 40 times at this moment. Did not expect. Use Shikai twice at the same time, and my spiritual power will double again. Bai Ye's eyes were excited. To know, Shikai one time can multiply the spiritual power 20 times. Now that I have Lu Feng, I am equivalent to twice the Shikai. A total of 40 times the spiritual power can be multiplied. General Shinigami, even Yamamoto Genryu Sai, the strongest Shinigami in millennia, was only stuck at 10 times the spiritual power when he was Shikai. And myself. In the future, if you practice to the same level as Yamamoto Genryu Sai, Shikai and Bankai will be equivalent to 4 times his Reiatsu. Even. Directly use Shinigami's body to break through the limits of Shinigami's strength. At the same time, the Zanpakutō in Bai Ye's hand suddenly burst into dazzling cyan and blue light. Countless snowflakes were falling in the sky, and the edges of each ice blue snowflake exuded a dazzling cold light. It is so sharp that even the sharpest blade cannot compare with it. And with the integration of Bai Ye's Reiatsu, the snowflakes, which were already sharp, were even more chilly. It has broken away from the category of snowflake, and looks like a real magic weapon. The cyan whirlpool swirled around the snowflakes, making the snowflakes in the sky rotate rapidly. The speed and sharpness of ultimate even made the surrounding space tremble slightly. Subsequently, Bai Ye waved the knife gently. Huh. The wind roared between heaven and earth. The cyan wind gathered into a wind blade in the air. There are countless sharp snowflakes mixed in it. In an instant, he arrived in front of a mountain peak a few hundred meters away. A thin black line drew in the sky. That's a sign that space has been split open. PFF'd. The wind blade passed directly through the mountain peak and then disappeared out of sight. An entire mountain peak that was originally hard was like tofu in front of this wind blade. Hoo. Bai Ye kept swinging the knife, and the green wind blades were mixed with snowflakes. As soon as they appeared, they came to the mountain in an instant, carrying thin black lines. Just like inserting tofu or water splash, it penetrates instantly. This ultimate speed has already affected space. Where the wind blade passed, the space was even a little distorted, revealing fine marks. This kind of speed, such destructive power, it's completely a space blade. If ordinary people want to resist, it is simply impossible. Unable to react. Only the absolutely strong can barely dodge the space blade just before it reaches their bodies, using their experience in tens of thousands of battles. 0.031. Kenpachi. Advertise here. Good. Bai Ye nodded with satisfaction. Now, not only can I control the field on a large scale, but Lu Feng Wei Shui also supports each other, and my combat power has increased exponentially. Even if Ling Wei has not improved, with the blessing of Lu Feng, it is equivalent to doubling again. Just Shikai, his own Reiatsu can be multiplied 40 times. Who can withstand this? At this time, in the training ground, the snowflakes all over the sky disappeared. After Bai Ye took back his Reiatsu, the snowflakes that fell on the ground gradually melted as if they had lost their power. Only, Bai Ye held the knife in his hand, and with just a thought, a layer of green and blue light appeared on it. Reiatsu. Shikai's range is too large, and the consumption of Reiatsu is also terrifying. If it is a daily battle, the power can be concentrated on the blade. Not only can it reduce consumption. Moreover, the power burst out will not be weakened at all. Bai Ye waved his hand casually, and a thin crack opened in the space in front of him, and a terrifying tearing force came from it. Any object that came close would not be able to escape being crushed into slag. Use the speed of the wind. Accelerate the sharp snowflakes to ultimate, exuding terrifying cutting power that can even cut open space. Legend. The Sword God. Nikaya-O from the Zero Division has Soul Society's sharpest Zanpakutō, Sheath Bushi. However, even the Sheath Bushi cannot cut through all the space. It is even more impossible to use the power of space to explode such terrifying destructive power. I don't know how far Bankai will reach. There was a trace of expectation in Bai Ye's eyes. Just Shikai, his own Zanpakutō possesses such terrifying destructive power, which is not inferior to the strongest Zanpakutō such as Ryujin Jaka, Higher or even more. After all, even Ryujin Jaka, Higher couldn't cut through space. If it were Bankai, at the same time, within Maple Leaf Pavilion. Mama Sang is entertaining the guests with a smile on her face. Only, a guard ran over in a panic. No, it's not good. The captain of the 11th Division, Mr. Kenpachi of Kigenho, is outside Maple Leaf Pavilion with hundreds of team members. And he also said that he would take Bai Ye back to Gote 13 prison. As soon as these words came out, there was silence in the field, and then it became noisy. What? Hyugashiro Kenpachi-sama actually took action himself. Whether it was the maid or the drinker who came, the pupils shrank violently. The name, Kenpachi. He represents the most skilled and powerful captain in Gote 13. Even though among the current 13 teams, Hiroku Shunsui, Jashiro Yukataki and others are extremely prestigious, the name, Kenpachi, still has a different meaning in the hearts of the people of Seireitei. This represents the ultimate in combat. Why would Kenpachi of Ghost City target Bai Ye like this? Mama-san looked surprised. Aside, those who knew the whole story told Mama-san about Bai Ye and Ichino's Maki. It was obvious that Kenpachi wanted to occupy the name of Duya and avenge his men. If he takes action against Bai Ye, it would be hard for others to say anything. After all, Bai Ye is now a sinner. I'll go tell Mr. Bai Ye right away and tell him not to go out. Mama Song's face tightened. Then he was ready to tell Bai Ye. Maple Leaf Pavilion is the property of the Shihouin family. Without orders from Central 46, even the current Kenpachi cannot take action against Maple Leaf Pavilion. After all, the Shihouin family is one of the four noble families. He is respected throughout Soul Society. Outside Maple Leaf Pavilion, at this time, there was a dense crowd, with hundreds of Shinigami wearing black Death Tyrant uniforms and Zanpakutō slung around their waists gathered. They all had respectful expressions on their faces, looking at Kiyoshi Kenpachi, their captain, who was standing at the forefront. Ever since Kenpachi of Kigashima killed the previous Kenpachi and the 5th assistant Kenpachi, he had established prestige in the 11th division with his own strength. Even though he came to Maple Leaf Pavilion this time for his own personal affairs, no one had any opposing voices. If Bai Ye doesn't come out, then I will go to the 4th division in person and ask for Yunohana Retsu. Higashima Kenpachi exhaled a breath, his ugly face twitching slightly. Yunohana Retsu. He's just the captain of the healing team. Moreover, in the past 100 years, he had never achieved any impressive results, so he subconsciously regarded Yunohana Retsu as a weakling. Even though she is the same captain as him. However, Soul Society respects strength after all. People were coming and going on the street, and a large number of civilians had gathered at this time. Everyone was watching the scene from hundreds of meters apart, with their brows either filled with sadness or filled with the excitement of watching a show. Kenpachi Kionjo and Bai Ye are going to face each other. I wonder which of the two is stronger or weaker. Everyone was talking about it. However, most people are not optimistic about Bai Ye. After all, even if he killed Bankai's Byakuya, Byakuya Kuchiki was only a 4th level spiritual power after all, and his mastery of Bankai was not complete, and there was still a big gap between him and the current captain. And the current captain is even more famous for being good at fighting and decisive in killing. This is Kenpachi, a real active captain. In terms of combat power, he will definitely crush Byakuya Kuchiki countless times. This is the captain who truly masters Bankai. Even though Bai Ye has captain-level spiritual power. However, he has not mastered Bankai after all, and he would be extremely dangerous if he were to face Kenpachi. And outside the crowd, there were already 3 people crowded in the canopy of a tall and thick tree. A decadent uncle wearing captain's haori and looking lazy. On the other side, there was an energetic young man with a mouth full of fangs, a yellow mushroom head, and a body that looked as thin as a bamboo pole. Back, he is a man wearing square-rimmed glasses, with a gentle face and a spring-like smile at the corner of his mouth. Only, the 3 of them, now looking at Kenpachi Kigenho showing off his power, all showed a look of lack of interest on their faces. About Kigashima Kenpachi. Naturally, they all knew that although he was a captain, his combat power was not worthy of the name, Kenpachi. I wonder, how will Bai Ye respond? Hiraku Shunsui's unshaven face showed an expression of interest. Although, as Bai Ye's drinking buddy, he would definitely help Bai Ye if his life was in danger. However, Bai Ye gave him the feeling that it was like a layer of fog shrouded in fog, and no one could see clearly his roots. Maybe, Bai Ye can still give everyone a big surprise this time. On the side, Hiroko Shinji covered his mouth and yawned. As for Aizen Sosuke, he still had a gentle and kind attitude and looked indestructible on the outside. However, there is still a trace of his mind, sensing the changes that may occur at any time in the field. 032. Bai Ye, probably scared. Advertise here. Just when the outside world was in full swing and there was a lot of noise. In the underground training ground, Bai Ye experimented with the power of flowing wind and snow, again, and became increasingly satisfied. The ground was now full of signs of collapse. Even some of the sand disappeared and was swallowed directly by the space rift created by Bai Ye. Right now, on the communication device he carried with him. The news came that Rangaku had met for a drink, and there were also Lisa Yakinmaru, Surugaki Hiyori and others. Even the 2 boring gourds Hisagi Shuhei and Ichimaru Jin were brought together by them. This is the strongest lineup of this freshman class except Byakuya. Now, it's up to him. It's no fun to be in Maple Leaf Pavilion all the time. Bai Ye nodded and agreed to Matsumoto Rangaku's invitation, then put away the knife, walked out of the underground training ground, came to the empty room, and opened the door directly. But, just when he pushed open the door, hula la la. Like dumplings, Mama sang, the maid, and some melon-eating people who were leaning on the door board all fell at Bai Ye's feet and fell to the ground. At the same time, the entire corridor was crowded with people eating melon seeds or holding watermelons. They were all looking at Bai Ye, waiting for his next reaction. Bai Ye looked at the scene in front of him. Master Bai Ye, listen to me. Mama Song showed an embarrassed smile on his face, got up, and turned to Bai Ye seriously to talk about the ghost city Kenpachi, who was now waiting for Bai outside the Maple Leaf Pavilion. Also throw yourself into a trap. After a while, Bai Ye understood what happened, but there was no reaction on his face. Instead, he still held the wine gourd and took a sip from time to time. It seems that Kenpachi is not looking for him, he has become a spectator watching the show. Sir Bai Ye, this is it. You must not go out now. We have sent people to ask for the master of the Yoruichi family. As long as she comes, even Kenpachi of Onigashima City can't do anything to you. Mama Sang stopped in front of Bai Ye and told him a perfect plan. Only, Bai Ye still looked calm, and just asked quietly, is it almost noon now? Yeah, there's still half an hour. Mama Song looked confused, wondering why Bai Ye suddenly asked this question. Bai Ye nodded. Then he directly pushed Mama San and the crowd gathered in the corridor away, while the Reiatsu on his body covered them all. Even if Mama Sang and others wanted to stop him, they couldn't touch Bai Ye's clothes because of their low strength. Rangaku and the others agreed on a time of noon. I can't be late. Bai Ye, Master Bai Ye. Mama-san looked at Bai Ye walking out, and her heart sank. If anything happens to Bai Ye, Miss Yoruichi will definitely blame herself. The surrounding crowd became even more noisy, marveling, and looking back and forth at Bai Ye's back with disbelieving eyes. Unexpectedly, Bai Ye actually dared to walk out of Maple Leaf Pavilion. Doesn't he know? What kind of existence will I face? That's the current Kenpachi. Become the man who is best at fighting. And no matter how talented Bai Ye is, he is still just a student. He hasn't even mastered Bankai. Is he really fearless? Or is it confirmed that Kenpachi will not hurt him? The girl Feijun, who was squeezed into the corner with eyes as pure as the crimson sky, also looked at the man carrying the wine gourd, even though there was an active captain below. A man who has no fear. Even walking on the road, still drinking leisurely. Does he really not care about anything? Or do you have the confidence to control everything? Not long after, in front of Maple Leaf Pavilion. Heian Castle Kenpachi looked at the doorway where people were coming and going, but he couldn't find Bai Ye, with a trace of impatience on his face. This Bai Ye, I thought he would have some bloodiness, but now it seems that he is just a coward who bullies the weak and fears the strong. He snorted coldly. He gently pressed the hilt of Zanpakutō's sword. Wait another half hour. If he doesn't come out, I will go to Unohana-retsu myself to ask for him. Being a Kenpachi, he has the confidence to despise Unohana-retsu. At the same time, a dense crowd of people had gathered in the venue. Countless Seireitei civilians who were after tea or had nothing to do gathered here. Watch the developments on the field. After all, the security in Seireitei has always been good. It's been a long time since such a big conflict broke out. I think that Bai Ye is probably scared. Otherwise, why haven't you come out for so long? The onlookers were talking a lot. Only, right now. Pap, tap, footsteps sounded, and a staggering young man carrying a wine gourd, with a hint of drunken ruddy face, appeared in everyone's sight. Just appeared. It was like lighting a fuse, causing everyone present to be shocked. Bai Ye actually came out. Does he really have no fear? This is Kenpachi, Kiyoshi. Anyone with the title of Kenpachi is a rare and powerful person in Soul Society. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone stared intently, watching the developments in the field. In the distance, on the big tree, Hiraku Shunsui also sat up, and a trace of solemnity finally appeared on his face. Hirako Shinji, Aizen Sosuke also raised his head and looked at the core of the conflict, Bai Ye. Only, even in the face of such a scenario, Bai Ye's face was still calm, as if what was standing in front of him was not Kenpachi, but a stone or a piece of dead wood, which could not attract his attention. Very good. Kenpachi looked at Bai Ye with a ferocious smile on his face. As a criminal, you dare to appear in the Seireitei with such arrogance. Do you take Central 46's order seriously? Since the Shihouin family doesn't do anything, then I will take you to prison. Said. Higashima Reiatsu roars from Kenpachi's body. Captain-level Reiatsu is overwhelming. The earth was trembling, and the trees in the distance also made a creaking sound, as if they were howling plaintively. Under this pressure, some passers-by who were slightly closer suddenly started sweating profusely, with large drops of sweat dripping down their foreheads, and a look of horror in their eyes. They quickly stepped aside. Only, Bai Ye still looked lazy. He just took a sip of wine and looked at the sun in the sky. Oh, Ghost City Kenpachi saw a hint of anger in his eyes when he saw himself being so ignored by Bai Ye, and then revealed a violent smile. If it is Bai Ye, he will be captured without hesitation. On the contrary, it is difficult for him to take action, but Bai Ye is completely refusing to cooperate now, so even if he takes action to take it down, it is very reasonable. 033. Is Kenpachi really capable? Advertise here. Only. Not waiting for him to take action. Whoosh. Bai Ye's figure disappeared instantly. The whole person appeared in front of him in an instant. The power that had been restrained suddenly turned into waves of Reiatsu soaring into the sky. Judging from its power, it is no weaker than Kenpachi, and it is even stronger. A fist is getting bigger and bigger in front of Kenpachi. Not good. Gui Yancheng Kenpachi's heart tightened, and he quickly moved aside. He did not expect that Bai Ye, who was originally lazy, could make such an unexpected move. Only, Bai Ye's speed is really too fast. Both White Hits and Shunko have reached the limit of captain level. In fact, after unlocking the Taishu Flash Goddess, his Shunko's speed has been improved even if he casts a mediocre Shunko. Bang! The dull sound of fists hitting flesh could be heard. The speed of that fist even exceeded the limit, causing a harsh howling sound in the air. A heavy blow to Kigenho Kenpachi's face. Then, a body rose into the air and flew rapidly towards the back. In the air, there was also the sound of crunching, bones cracking. Boom! Higan Castle Kenpachi flew hundreds of meters in the air. Finally, it hit the wall of a house, knocking out a large human-shaped hole. Until then, only then did the onlookers react, and the originally noisy venue suddenly became silent. Everyone stared at Bai Ye with wide eyes, their eyes full of wonder and fear of his power. Everything that just happened was like a rabbit rising and a falcon disappearing. They didn't even notice anything. Kenpachi Kionjo was punched away. Did not expect. Bai Ye, whom they all disliked, could actually explode with such terrifying power. The members of Team 11 were full of surprise and disbelief. They didn't expect that the captain they had always respected as a god would be so vulnerable in Bai Ye's hands. This is simply outrageous. You know, this is Kenpachi. Further away, above the canopy, Hiroku Shunsui, Hiroko Shinji, all stared at Bai Ye. As a captain-level expert, they can naturally see that Bai Ye didn't have any bells and whistles just now, and just relied on the speed and power of ultimate to instantly repel Kenpachi from Kenpachi. His white hits, as well as Shunpo, are undoubtedly captain-level. Even among the captains, they are the absolute best. It's really scary. Hiroko Shinji exhaled a breath and looked at Bai Ye with a complicated expression. Even though he looked down on Kenpachi Kyoshi, he still had captain-level combat power after all. As a contemporary Kenpachi, he was the Gote 13 card, but he didn't expect that he would be repelled by Bai Ye so easily. Behind, Aizen Sosuke, who wore square glasses and had brown hair, also turned his attention to Bai Ye at this time, with an interesting smile on his lips. Off the field, everyone was shocked. Everyone was stunned by Bai Ye and speechless. And Bai Ye. Then he flicked his wrist. He took a sip of wine, his face still calm. Kenpachi. Although he is a contemporary Kenpachi, his name, Kenpachi, was acquired by accident. At best, he is only an average captain-level player, not even as good as Muguruma Kensai. Hateful. Houses in ruins. A face was covered with blood, and the bones in the cheek could even be seen. It was so white that it was very oozing. Higan Castle Kenpachi struggled to push away the rubble that was pressing on him. He was panting and his cheeks were burning with pain. A pair of eyes covered with bloodshot eyes, like a trapped animal, staring at Bai Ye not far away. One strike. Just one hit. I can't even resist it. Now, he has completely put away his contempt for Bai Ye and regards Bai Ye as a real enemy. You are very good and worthy of me using Bankai. It is an honor for you to be suppressed by contemporary Kenpachi. Ghost Castle Kenpachi's words are cold. But, Bai Ye shook his head slightly and looked at Kenpachi as if he were a clown. It's just a Kenpachi I picked up. Do you really think I have the strength to match it? Quote. Kenpachi choked on his words, but the coldness in his eyes became even stronger. To him, the word, picking up leaks, is undoubtedly a negative sign. After all, since Mole City Kenpachi was imprisoned in the infernal hell, the captain of Team 11 was succeeded by Mole City Kenpachi's deputy captain and fifth assistant Kenpachi. Then, Kenpachi's strength is just that of vice captain. As a captain at that time, he challenged Kenpachi, the fifth assistant, and naturally killed him easily and won the title of Kenpachi. Speaking of which, it is really a mistake. Only. During the years he served as Kenpachi, no one dared to mention this moment in front of him, but now, Bai Ye has bloodily revealed the evil in his heart. You're fine. When you are young and frivolous, you must also recognize your own strength. This time I will show you what price you will pay for these words. Higan Castle. The muscles on Kenpachi's bloody face were trembling, looking very scary. Subsequently, veins popped out in his two thick arms, and with a clang, he pulled out Zanpakutō, and huge waves of Reiatsu spread crazily in all directions. And the blade of the blade twisted in the sunlight, as if some horrific changes were taking place, and a huge sense of oppression crazily overflowed. Onion Castle Kenpachi's eyes were cold, staring at Bai Ye not far away, and murmuring, Bankai, invincible, iron-cut fangs. Boom. The long knife in his hand suddenly turned into a weapon that was as tall as a man. The edges are covered with fangs that exude the coldness of the forest. It looks like a huge mace. Just wave it gently. It caused a strong explosion of air. It reveals a heavy aura that is indestructible and indestructible to anything. At this time, in the field, everyone watched Kenpachi Bankai in front of everyone, and they didn't dare to express their anger. The members of the 11th Division were trembling even more. They knew the strength of their captain best. Even though he doesn't know how strong he is among the captains, he can easily suppress everyone in the 11th Division. The current Kenpachi in Kigashima is like a wild beast, exuding unparalleled brutal oppression. This is the captain-level Bankai. Kenpachi's Bankai. Many civilians were talking about it and looking at the scene with amazement. When have they ever seen such a big scene? This is captain level. I rarely take action on weekdays. And today, they will witness a captain-level battle. Bai Ye is very difficult. Bankai's improvement in strength is simply explosive. Shikai Reiatsu has improved 5 to 10 times, and Bankai has improved 5 to 10 times again. As for Bai Ye, even if he is a third-class spiritual power, he will only be a Shikai after all. Everyone shook their heads. Shinigami's battle is Reiatsu's battle. Even Bai Ye's Shikai is very powerful, even comparable to Bankai. But, Reiatsu's gap is always a flaw. 0.034. Bankai, cut it with one knife. Advertise here. And further away, Hiroko Shinji and Kyoraku Shunsui also cheered up, and Kyoraku Shunsui put his hand on the hilt of the Zanpakutō sword, ready to rescue at any time. Hyugashiro Kenpachi may be an idiot, but his Bankai is pretty good. Hiroko Shinji said softly. Higan Castle Kenpachi's Bankai can greatly increase his strength, and Zanpakutō will turn into a mace, which is extremely hard and good at attacking fortresses. It can be said, in a head-on battle, Higan Castle Kenpachi is not afraid of anyone. As for Aizen Sosuke on the side, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he did not pay attention to Kenpachi Kiyoshi, but focused all his attention on the seemingly calm Bai Ye. At this time, Bai Ye looked at Bankai of Kenpachi in Ghost City with a look of interest on his face. In the original work, little is said about Kyugashi Kenpachi. After all, he was hacked to death by Zaraki Kenpachi before the plot began. As for his Bankai, it's even more unclear. But now, feeling the overwhelming momentum of Kenpachi in Ghost City, especially the attacking aura emanating from Zanpakutō, Bai Ye nodded slightly. It seems, every Bankai has its merits. It can be said that there is no Zanpakutō with waste, only Shinigami with waste. After all, Kyoka Suigetsu is the strongest illusion-type Zanpakutō, and it is also because of Aizen, the master, who has Reiatsu that exceeds the limits of Shinigami, so no one can escape the illusion of Kyoka Suigetsu. As long as Reiatsu is not as good as Aizen, there is no way to escape Kyoka Suigetsu's control. And some Shinigami with insufficient Reiatsu, such as Muguruma Kensai, or the Kenpachi in front of them, even if they have Kyoka Suigetsu, they definitely cannot achieve the terrifying effect of Aizen in the original work. Aizen's Reiatsu. It can even interfere with the Emperor of the Invisible Empire, Yhwach. As for Muguruma Kensai, it's better to wash up and sleep. Bai Ye shook his head and didn't think too much. Following his thoughts. In the sky, blue snowflakes are falling, looking beautiful under the sunlight. Only, however, Kenpachi felt as if he was facing a formidable enemy, and his whole body was extremely nervous. After investigation by Room 46 and Gote 13, there is some information about Bai Ye. The secret of his ability to disappear instantly is inseparable from the snowflakes in the sky. It must be resolved quickly, without any further delay. Die! Higashima Kenpachi roared angrily. The whole person drew a series of afterimages in the air and rushed towards Bai Ye. The mace in his hand also exudes a calm and solid light. He was running on the ground. The earth is shaking. Under the gaze of onlookers, the current Kenpachi is like a running mountain, capable of crushing and annihilating everything. No one can stop his offensive. Bai Ye, on the other hand, still stood there quietly, not retreating or escaping, as if he was scared to death. Some timid people even closed their eyes for fear of seeing Bai Ye's bloody scene, and Kiraku Shunsui even pulled out the Zanpakutō with a clang, and rushed in the direction of Bai Ye. Now, there was a hint of anxiety on his weathered face. He couldn't understand why Bai Ye didn't act. If he were hit head-on by Kenpachi Kionjo, I am afraid that even Bai Ye would be seriously injured or even die directly. Humph, that's all. Gui Yancheng Kenpachi had ferocious eyes and waved the mace wildly in his hand. He came to Bai Ye in an instant and smashed it down at him. Now. He has no intention of taking Bai Ye into custody. He just wants to teach him a lesson and let him know the consequences of irritating him. Only, just before he was about to touch Bai Ye, Shikai, Lufeng Weishui, Bai Ye thought. Zheng, a Zanpakutō, which was completely icy blue with cyan lines on it, appeared in Bai Ye's hand in an instant. However, compared to before, Zanpakutō is now covered with a layer of cyan light. The whistling of the wind can be vaguely heard, and the snowflakes floating in the air are also attracted by this cyan light. It only took a moment to reach Zanpakutō. With the wind speed reaching ultimate, the sharp snowflakes rotated crazily, bursting out with terrifying cutting power. The light and shadow around Bai Ye are distorted, and even the space is trembling faintly. And a wave of Reiatsu that far surpassed Bai Ye before, like a vast ocean, rose into the sky. In the next moment, Kenpachi was completely suppressed. Under Bai Ye's Reiatsu, Kenpachi's Reiatsu is like a child carrying a sledgehammer, there is no comparison at all. Even if it's just Shikai, Bai Ye's Reiatsu is even close to the second-class spiritual power. This is. Higashima Kenpachi's eyes narrowed, and his movements of waving the mace slowed down a bit. Only, don't let him think too much. Bai Ye waved the knife lightly. Stab. With a sound, a green wind blade appeared instantly. And the space couldn't bear this terrifying cutting force, and a dark and deep thin crack opened. PFF'd. A very low voice sounded. After the blue wind blade passed by the mace and the body of Kenpachi, it flew wildly towards the distance without any stagnation. He just disappeared from everyone's sight in an instant. This is the space blade. Even the sharpest Zanpakutō, Sheath Fu, in the entire Seireitei can't cut through the space. This is the ultimate in speed and the ultimate in attack. Everything exists in space, and it is impossible to compete with the power of space. At the same time, Higashima Kenpachi's body froze, and the words he was about to say were stuck in his throat. His eyes protruded and were bloodshot like dead fish. Quiet. There was silence in the field. Everyone looked straight at the scene where Kenpachi and Bai Ye were fighting. Kenpachi, what happened? Someone asked. They did not see Bai Ye's movements, but they seemed to see a burst of green light. Kenpachi, who was originally powerful and sharp, stopped immediately. Next moment, under the gaze of everyone. Ding dong. Zanpakutō, which was originally extremely strong, infallible and blessed by the Bankai state, directly broke into two pieces and fell to the ground. The cut surfaces were as smooth as a mirror without any flaws. Immediately afterwards, PFF'd. A large amount of blood spurted out from Kenpachi's neck. The blood sprayed, and under the sunlight, it looked like a bloody rainbow, beautiful, but mixed with the smell of death. With a bang sound, his head rolled down to the ground like a rubber ball, his eyes staring like a dead fish, full of a feeling of not resting in peace. Kenpachi. At this time, the body died. Standing frozen. Petrochemical. My scalp is numb. At this time, everyone in the scene, whether they were ordinary civilians, Maple Leaf Pavilion personnel, or Kyoraku Shunsui and others, were all silent. They all stared at the corpse of Kenpachi on the ground with their eyes widened, their hearts already filled with horror. Died. Kenpachi. Higashiro Kenpachi, died like this. 035. Captain, he died. Advertise here. Ha. Just when everyone was shocked. Bai Ye just yawned lazily and put away the Zanpakutō, as if he just chopped a tree or a stone. Don't let him be touched. Kenpachi. Even though he is a Kenpachi, compared to Mole City Kenpachi, strong people like Zaraki Kenpachi are like clowns and cannot stand on the stage. Although Bankai is remarkable, however, his own strength is flawed. Can't bear the name Kenpachi at all. Subsequently, Bai Ye shook his head, no longer thinking about it, and looked at the sun in the sky. It was almost noon, and it was time to go to the appointment with Rangaku. He stepped over Kenpachi's body and left. Only the stunned people were left standing there. At this time, watching Bai Ye's leaving back. Dead silence. Stiff. Outside Maple Leaf Pavilion, there was a sea of people, but now you could hear a needle drop. Everyone held their breath and stared at the strong man who left. A full quarter of an hour later. Only then did someone sigh softly. Bai Ye, he actually defeated Kenpachi of the Demon City. And it's still close to an instant kill. Kenpachi Kigashiro couldn't let him use his full strength at all. Kenpachi. Since ancient times, in Gote 13, and even in the entire Soul Society, they are synonymous with being good at fighting and having superior combat power, but now they were killed so easily by Bai Ye. From now on, the history of Seireitei and the history of Soul Society have to record Bai Ye's name. Bai Ye. In the history of Seireitei, the only ruthless person who killed Kenpachi is a civilian. Moreover, he is still so young and has such a bright future. As long as he doesn't perish, he will definitely be able to reach the level of Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni in the future. Maple Leaf Pavilion. Mama-song, the waiter, and Feijun all looked confused. Is this solved? Bai Ye was unscathed and actually killed contemporary Kenpachi. Everyone felt that their worldview was about to collapse. Even though they knew how powerful Bai Ye was, they didn't expect that he was so strong. Even contemporary Kenpachi is no match for him. It seems that I went to invite Ms. Yoruichi, but I was just being sentimental. With his strength, I'm afraid he can handle this situation without the help of the Shihouin family. Mama-san sighed softly. The awe of Bai Ye in my heart is even greater. At the same time, thinking that Bai Ye seemed to have glanced at Feijun a few more times today, she secretly made up her mind that next time Bai Ye came, Feijun might be able to serve him. The members of the 11th Division who originally came had already exploded. Captain, Sir Captain, is dead. Everyone looked stiff. My heart seemed to be squeezed by a big hand, and I couldn't breathe smoothly. Kenpachi Kigashiro, being able to serve as the captain of the 11th Division for so many years has proven his strength and is definitely worthy of the title of captain. But, now he was killed so decisively. Even in the face of Bai Ye leaving, he didn't dare to stop him at all. The captain was beheaded. If they go up now, aren't they committing suicide? Then they realized that some officers and deputy captains collected the body of Kenpachi Kigenho and hurriedly walked in the direction of Gote 13. Now, the most important thing is to notify the captain. The captain of Gote 13 was killed like this in the street. It was like a big earthquake for the entire Seireitei. They couldn't even imagine it. What kind of waves will this incident cause? Far away, on the big tree, the wind is very noisy. Hiraku Shunsui and Hirako Shinji were all messy in the wind, their eyes staring straight at the corpse of Kenpachi on the ground. The mouth is wide open, as if it could fit an egg. Bai Ye he. Hiraku Shunsui smiled bitterly. I was still worried that he would be invincible to Kenpachi, but now it seems that he is invincible. Totally an instant kill. I am afraid. Now Bai Ye, even among the captains, belongs to the stronger group. But, how old is Bai Ye? An ordinary Shinigami would never be able to achieve this level of combat power and achievement even until death. Bai Ye's potential made Kyoraku Shunsui feel his scalp numb. If he doesn't die, he may even affect the entire Soul Society's structure in the future. However, he killed Kigenho Kenpachi. Whether it is the captain or Central 46, it is a bit difficult to explain. Hiraku Shunsui sighed lightly. The captain was killed. For Gote 13, it was undoubtedly a slap in the face. It will even affect Gote 13's prestige among the entire Seireitei to a certain extent. These are all second. Did you see clearly what Bai Ye did just now? Aside, Hirako Shinji said with a serious tone. Just. The sword that Bai Ye used to kill Kenpachi Guiansheng definitely used more than just ice and snow abilities. It is so sharp and has such powerful destructive power that it can even directly cut off the Bankai Zanpakutō that Kenpachi is proud of. This is equivalent to crushing and defeating Kenpachi in the area where he is best. It's impossible to do this with only the ability of the ice and snow Zanpakutō. Not to mention, Bai Ye is still just Shikai. If you let him Bankai. Think of this. Even Hiroko Shinji couldn't help but lament the horror of Bai Ye. You mean, Bai Ye also has other abilities? And be able to integrate it into Zanpakutō? Hiroku Shunsui touched his chin and nodded in agreement. Some exceptionally talented Shinigami. You can combine Kidō, white hits, or other abilities with your own Zanpakutō abilities to achieve the effect of 1+1 greater than 2. Or mix various abilities to develop brand new abilities based on the ability to slay fists and move ghosts. Shihouin Yoruichi's Shunkaku is a blend of white hits, Shunpo, and Kidō, so that her hand-to-hand combat ability is the best among the best in Gote 13. As for the dual-line Zanpakutō, this kind of thing does not exist at all in the history of Seireitei. Even though both of them are captains, this layer is not thought of. At this time, Shihouin Yoruichi also arrived belatedly, and his heart sank when he saw the bloodline on the ground of Maple Leaf Pavilion. After seeing Kyoraku Shunsui and others, he hurriedly met them, with a hint of anxiety on his face. Bai Ye, how is Bai Ye? Hey, are you worried about him? You really think too much. Kyoraku Shunsui sighed softly. Looking at Shihouin Yoruichi, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Tell everything that just happened. And Shihouin Yoruichi, after learning all this, froze in place. His, Bai Ye brother, had done another earth-shattering thing. I wonder how Captain Yamamoto and Central 46 will respond. 036. Instant cast. Double chant. Advertise here. As for Kigashima Kenpachi, neither Yoruichi nor Unohana Retsu had much interaction with that person. Even if Kenpachi Kiyoshi died, there were not many waves in her heart. And aside, Aizen Sosuke, who had been silent, wearing square glasses and looking gentle, now had an interesting smile on his lips. Since childhood, knowing that he had talents that others could not match, he understood that he and ordinary people were completely different species. But, today's Bai Ye makes him find a feeling of, same kind. But, Aizen shook his head slightly. Pity. There is only one position for the heavenly seat. Recently, there are really a lot of geniuses in Soul Society, whether it is Bai Ye or Ichimaru Jin. The older generation of strong people, such as Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, Hiroku Shunsui and others, are still alive and well and have not fallen. If this continues, there will be more and more strong people in Soul Society. The power of Soul Society will also become stronger and stronger, which is undoubtedly detrimental to his own plan. It seems, I have to make some changes to my plans. At the same time, in Seireitei, a small wine shop, there was a burst of sounds of people drinking and drinking. After several hours, the lively sounds gradually stopped. Now, in a wine shop, all around, there were figures with rosy faces and alcoholic bodies lying around. A young man with a handsome face and a wine gourd in his hand was lying lazily on the soft sofa. There was a heavy touch on his body. He was clearly the drunken unconscious Matsumoto Rangaku. As for the side, they are classmates from the classes of Lisa Yakinmaru, Tsurugaki Hiyori, Hisagi Shuhei, and Ichimaru Jin. This is also the first time the classmates in the class have gotten together since Bai Ye killed Byakuya last time. As for Ichimaru Jin, Bai Ye looked at Ichimaru Jin and narrowed his eyes slightly. At this time, his poker face with narrowed eyes disappeared, replaced by a drunken look, and he was lying on the ground soundly asleep. There is still a childish look on his face. He is, after all, just a child now. He is the future captain of Division 3 and possesses Zanpakutō Shinso. Known as the fastest and longest Zanpakutō in Soul Society. During Bankai's attack, everything around him was instantly chopped open, with great impact and cutting force, and the expansion and contraction speed was 500 times the speed of sound. Moreover, the blade will turn to ash at the moment of expansion and contraction, and a violent poison that can dissolve cells will appear inside the knife. When the knife is thrust out and then withdrawn, part of it will turn to ash and remain in the opponent's body. In the original work, he and Matsumoto Rangaku are childhood sweethearts. In order to recover Rangaku's soul that was taken away by Aizen, he became Aizen's subordinate and assassinated Aizen at the last moment. If Aizen hadn't completely fused with Hogyoku at that time, Ichimaru Jin would have been able to successfully assassinate him. Only, since he traveled through time, Matsumoto Rangaku has only been drinking with him every day. He does not have the childhood sweethearts relationship with Ichimaru Jin in the original work, and the two are just acquaintances. Think about it. This time, Ichimaru Jin has no reason to join Aizen's staff. Think of this. Bai Ye took a sip of wine. Open black lens bracket ding. Close black lens bracket. Congratulations to host, drinking with classmates. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket hosts Kidō level breakthrough. You can completely ignore the chanting and cast the Kidō you learned in an instant, with no loss of power. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket host unlocks Kidō Forbidden Technique, dual chant. You can release 2 Kidō at the same time. Instant Kidō. Double chant. Bai Ye nodded with satisfaction. Kidō, divided into Hado, Bakudo, Kaido. In the original work, Hado and Bakudo are most useful in combat, while Kaido is used for healing. To release Kidō, chanting is required. Even the Kidō master Aizen Sosuke in the original work can cast Kidō without chanting, but the power will be reduced a lot. Only through complete chanting can the full power of Kidō be unleashed. And myself, the chanting can be completely ignored. All it takes is a thought and it can be activated instantly. And, it's a double Kidō. It's equivalent to double the power of Kidō. Good. Bai Ye was satisfied. Even if I have unlocked no chanting before, there will be some forward movement when using Kidō, and there will be a slight pause at the moment of use. And now, Bai Ye thought about it. There were no signs. Suddenly, two pale flames danced at his fingertips, and the temperature in the room rose sharply. There was no doubt that the huge energy contained in them could destroy the entire izakaya in an instant. Subsequently, the flames on his fingertips slowly dissipated, as if they had never appeared before. Hado's 33, blue fire falling. In his own hands, it is even comparable to Hado in his 80s. Just when Bai Ye and others were drinking. At this time, the news that Kenpachi in Kigashima Castle was killed by Bai Ye spread like a hurricane throughout the entire Seireitei. The shock caused by this news is no less than that of Byakuya's murder. Even more sensational than Byakuya's murder. After all, the person who died this time was the real captain. And it's also the face of Gote 13, the contemporary Kenpachi. All the civilians who had seen Bai Ye's attack with their own eyes now respected Bai Ye like gods, and shared what they saw and heard in various pubs and restaurants. That Bai Ye is really going to be heaven-defying. Kill Kenpachi. This is an extremely explosive existence in the entire history of Soul Society. Everyone was discussing wildly, and their words were filled with awe of Bai Ye's power. Even though civilians like them couldn't see Bai Ye's knife attack clearly, it was true that Kenpachi in Kian Castle was killed with a knife even after Bankai. It also brings out the power of Bai Ye. However, wasn't Bai Ye sentenced to 100 years in prison by Central 46? How could he still be active in the Seireitei as if nothing had happened? And he even killed Kenpachi. Someone asked. It is rumored that Bai Ye has a good relationship with the young head of the Shihouin family, and there is also a captain's sister, someone whispered. Bai Ye, unlike those civilian geniuses who have no background and can only rely on their own efforts. The backer behind him is no less impressive than Byakuya Kuchiki. Even more victorious. Hear this. Everyone was even more in awe of Bai Ye. Extraordinary talent and amazing background. If nothing else goes wrong, I am afraid that after Captain Yamamoto abdicates, it will be Bai Ye who will hold up the banner of the entire Soul Society's combat power. At the same time, Spiritual Arts Academy, Central 46, Gote 13, were all overwhelmed by this hurricane-like news. Bai Ye, he could actually do this. However, Central 46 watched the images of Bai Ye's battle, and all the sages and judges had their eyes widened. This is another brand new power. Bai Ye, after teleportation. It gave them another big shock. Doesn't Bai Ye have the ability of the ice and snow system? Why can it still affect space? This is simply unrealistic. You know, even the sheath of Ermea Wang Yu cannot reach this level. 037. Now, I will take you to find Kuchiki Shanghai. Advertise here. Check. We must find out Bai Ye's ability. The judge waved his hand. The troop spies affiliated with Central 46, as well as the Kidō people, all took action. Now, Bai Ye's ability has greatly exceeded their expectations, and they must make a decision as soon as possible, whether it is to let Bai Ye marry into the noble family, or they use various means to subdue Bai Ye. Bai Ye, the strongest combat force in the future, must be firmly in their hands. At this time, Gote 13, headquarters. There are continuous ancient buildings everywhere. This is Soul Society's strongest violent organization, and it is also where the strongest Shinigami in millennia, Yamamoto Genryusai, is located. Only, now, the entire Gote 13 is filled with an atmosphere of imminent rain. Many Shinigami looked serious and did not even make too much noise. Everyone looked at the headless corpse in the square and the gloomy-looking Captain Yamamoto. Their hearts seemed to be pressed by a big stone. Breathing is a little uncomfortable. Everyone. They all felt the aura of impending rain. Awful. Kenpachi, Kiyoshi, died so tragically and so humiliatingly. He was hacked to death in the street and his head was lost. What's more, the person who killed him was still a teenager. Even though Bai Ye is called the #1 genius in Soul Society, Kenpachi is a strong man who has been famous for a long time. Was he actually killed by Bai Ye? Everyone was as silent as a cicada. And an old man with a ferocious scar on his bald head, who looked like he was about to die, tapped his cane at this time, and his old eyes emitted a sharp light like an eagle. Looking at the group of dejected members of Squad 11. Explain. The whole story. Yamamoto had a dark look on his face. The death of Kenpachi of this generation not only lost a talent, but also left the 11th division without a leader. If it is not handled well, it will be an extremely heavy blow to the reputation of Gote 13 as a whole. General, Captain Gui Yancheng, wants to put Bai Ye in jail. The deputy captain stuttered, nervously explaining the whole story clearly. And Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni's white beard was about to stand up. Looking at the body of Kenpachi Kigenho on the ground, he resisted the urge to step on him. About Bai Ye. Originally it had nothing to do with Gote 13, but now Kenpachi from Kyoshi has stepped in and introduced Gote 13 into the feud between Bai Ye and Uzumaki of the Kuchiki family. Naturally, he had heard about Ichino's Maki, but he didn't pay much attention to it. After all, he was just a small official. Unexpectedly, Kenpachi of Kian City was so motivated that he directly attacked Bai Ye without even telling him that he was the captain. Even if Kenpachi Kigenho is still alive, he is no longer worthy of the name, Kenpachi. Captain, this matter. Rear. Shiba focused on Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni. He is the head of the Shiba family branch house and the current captain of the 10th Division. I found Bai Ye's current location. I want to see him in person. Yamamoto Genryusai let out a breath. Now, things have happened. As the commander-in-chief, he must control the incident within a controllable range and minimize the impact of the incident. Not to mention, of course Kenpachi Kigenho did something wrong in this matter. However, Bai Ye showed no mercy and killed Kenpachi in the street. Just like when Byakuya Kuchiki was killed. Think of this. Even if he is as strong as Yamamoto Genryusai, he can't help but have a headache. This Bai Ye doesn't obey discipline at all, and his talent is amazingly powerful. In Bai Ye, he saw the shadow of his youth. That's what made him feel so troubled. Time flies. Not long after, the intelligence officer hurried over and said respectfully to Yamamoto. Bai Ye was drinking with classmates at an izakaya today, but now he has gone to Shihouin's home, and Shihouin Yoruichi is entertaining him. The Shihouin family. Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni nodded slightly. This is also one of the 4 nobles and the real leader of Soul Society. Even if he is the captain, he cannot completely ignore the Shihouin family. However, there must be an explanation for Kenpachi's death. Isshin Shiba, Urahara Kazuki, you will follow me to the Shihouin family. Said. Yamamoto walked directly out of the Gote 13 headquarters, followed by 3 people. Urahara Kazuki, who was originally out of character, now has a calmer look on his face. This thing is so tricky. I'm afraid, the captain only has 2 choices left. At the same time, the Kuchiki family has a row of antique and luxurious buildings, and all passers-by look in awe. This is one of the 4 nobles. Kuchiki family, a great nobleman at the pinnacle of Soul Society. The power and energy held in his hands are beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Only, now, a fierce quarrel broke out within the Kuchiki family, and there was also the sound of teacups being smashed. Master, this is what we mean. Some old men looked at the gloomy Kuchiki Yinling above, with scarlet eyes, without any fear on their faces. After expressing their demands clearly, they left directly. The Kuchiki Silver Bell wants to use the power of the entire Kuchiki family to design and kill Bai Ye, which is not in the interest of the Kuchiki family at all. As the elders of their family, they naturally cannot let Kuchiki Yinling have his own way. Especially after hearing that Bai Ye actually killed contemporary Kenpachi. This idea became even more firm in their hearts. Even Kenpachi can be killed. I am afraid that it will take a small amount of Gote 13's power, or Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni to take action personally, to make Bai Ye be able to be executed. If the siege fails, the Kuchiki family will create 3 powerful enemies out of thin air: Bai Ye, Unohana Retsu, and the Shihouin family. Even if it succeeds, it will not be of any benefit to the Kuchiki family. Not only will they lose manpower, but they will also offend Unohana Retsu and the Shihouin family. No matter which one, none of it is in the interests of the Kuchiki family. As for the Kuchiki family's successor after Byakuya's death, there is also a young boy of the right age in the Kuchiki family branch house with good talent. As long as he is adopted to the Kuchiki Silver Bell, this problem can be solved. Trash. A bunch of losers. Kuchiki Yinling looked at the many old men leaving with a gloomy expression. Even if he insists on having his own way and uses his own power. But the power of the Kuchiki family consists of the main house, the branch house, and the attached nobles, large and small. If they can exert their full strength, they can even form an army. And now, I don't have the support of the elders of the clans. I only rely on my strength as the head of the family, and I don't have the conditions to surround and kill Bai Ye. Think of this. He walked into the inner room and opened a simple box, inside which slept a cold Zanpakutō. Even though it had been sealed for many years, it still exuded a breathtaking edge. Yaodao Muramasa, I know you have woken up a long time ago. Now, I will take you to find your master, Kuchiki Shanghai. Kuchiki Yinling murmured softly, with a firm light in her eyes. 038. The heavenly seat has been vacant for too long. Advertise here. Sound River. It's a name he doesn't want to mention. Hundreds of years ago, he was framed as a rebel for killing his colleagues, and was permanently sealed in the real spiritual place, Karakura town. But now, Byakuya is dead. Only Kuchiki Shanghai can display the true strength of Demon Sword Muramasa, and Kuchiki Shanghai has already broken through the 2nd level spiritual power, and is considered the best even among captains. Plus my own words. At the same time, following the words of Kuchiki Ginling, Zanpakutō, who originally looked silent, actually twisted and deformed in the air, and finally transformed into a thin man with dark purple eye shadow. Zanpakutō turns into a human form. This is something that is impossible to happen, but it is actually happening before your eyes. Watch it all. Kuchiki Gingeling was not surprised at all. This is also one of Kuchiki's abilities. It is precisely because of his Zanpakutō's heaven-defying ability that he can stand out among the Gote 13 and become famous hundreds of years ago. Old man Yinling, are you really willing to let my master come out? Yaodao Muramasa looked at Kuchiki Yinling, with a trace of doubt in his eyes. But, Kuchiki Yinling did not talk to him, but directly disguised himself as an ordinary old man, leading the Demon Sword Village towards the outside world. He is going to the land of heavy spirits. Completely unblock Shanghai. Now, Rukongai. In a secret, deserted corner, a thatched house was built at this time. Inside, a man with square eyes looked at the file in his hand expressionlessly. Only when getting along with such a person can Aizen Sosuke truly release himself and no longer maintain that hypocritical facade. The experiment has come to a standstill, but it is not without gain. Aizen put the file down. At the same time, a completely blue crystal appeared in his hand that looked somewhat incomplete. At this time, the crystal exuded some strange and inexplicable power, and seemed to be transforming everything around it. Hogyoku. But not quite. However, the current Hogyoku is enough to allow Shinigami Hollow, or Kion to have the power of Shinigami to form, Arankar. If I have Urahara's Hogyoku and fuse it. Aizen looked calm. Urahara Kazuki. He seems to be just an ordinary captain who also serves as the director of the Technology Development Bureau. The only thing he did was to free Kuretsuchi Mayuri from the nest of maggots some time ago. But, Aizen attaches great importance to this person. By chance, he discovered Urahara Kazuki's Hogyoku experiment file, and Urahara Kazuki's progress was even higher than his. If you fuse Urahara Kazuki's Hogyoku with your own Hogyoku, you can get a complete Hogyoku. Truly gain the power to change everything. Only, Urahara's Hogyoku, ever since it was created by him, has been considered a danger by him and has been placed somewhere. Now, it's time for Aizen to pave the way for his future plans. Thinking of this, Aizen adjusted his glasses, and with a stab sound in front of him, a dark hole appeared, called the Black Cavity, which could connect Soul Society and Hwako Mundo. Aizen steps in. Suddenly, the scenery in front of them changed drastically. The ground was covered with white gravel, desolate scenes were everywhere, and in front of them was a huge and towering palace. Zai Palace. Only the king of Hwako Mundo is worthy of living in this palace. Aizen stepped in. Zai Palace, which had many Manos Grande guards and active, Espada, guards, all lowered their heads when they saw Aizen. There was a look of awe in his eyes. As early as a few years ago. This strong man came to Hwako Mundo, defeated Baragan, the king of Hwako Mundo at that time, and became the real lord of Hwako Mundo. His Reiatsu is simply unbeatable and crushes everything. Like a monster, he easily conquered the entire Zai Palace. Even though he is a Shinigami, he has no hostility towards Q. Instead, he allows Baragan to continue to live in Kyoyi Palace and develop his power. Grown-ups. Baragan looked at Aizen walking towards him and lowered his head reluctantly, without really surrendering in his heart. But Aizen is a stronger person than him after all, and besides Reiatsu, his Zanpakutō ability is even more terrifying. So, even with 10,000 reluctances, Baragan still recognized the title of Lord of Aizen Hwako Mundo. This can help Shu carry out Arankar. You will increase your strength during this period. After reaching a certain level, you will start to invade Soul Society. Aizen casually throws Hogyoku to Baragan. Is this the result of your research? Baragan looked like a skeleton and wore a black and purple robe, but even Manos Grande, a Vasto Lord, could not Arankar. This little blue thing can actually help the empty Arankar. Holding Hogyoku, Baragan's hands were trembling. Arankar means that his strength can be further improved. Even the strength of the entire Hwako Mundo will be greatly increased because of this Hogyoku. Compared to this, the request to attack Soul Society is nothing. Aizen looked at the excited Baragan with a blank expression. Of course he knew Baragan's dissatisfaction. But, even a piece of gravel or a weed should have its corresponding effect. As long as he has seen his Kyoka Suigetsu, it is impossible to escape from its control. At the same time, Aizen narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the dim sky of Hwako Mundo through Zai Palace. The faces of Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, Hiroku Shunsui, Jashiro Yukitaki, Urahara Kazuki, Shihouin Yoruichi, flashed through his mind, and then settled on Bai Ye's face. By Bai Ye, let him see that although the current Soul Society is decayed, the older generation of Shinigami is still fully capable, and the new generation of Shinigami has Bai Ye. And so on. The power of Soul Society will become stronger and stronger. So, it is imperative to strengthen Hwako Mundo and attack Soul Society to weaken Soul Society's power. Once you know the news about Urahara Kazuki Hogyoku, you can launch your plan directly. Hold the complete Hogyoku in your hands. The heavenly seat has been vacant for too long. Aizen sighed and sat on the throne of Hwako Mundo. Baragan stood respectfully beside him. However, Aizen felt extremely lonely in his heart and felt an unspeakable loneliness. Own ambitions. Who can understand it? The entire Soul Society was deceived by a huge lie and ruled by something like the Soul King's palace. Absolutely unacceptable. Although Bai Ye may be his kind, he can never be his partner. The relationship between the two is at best a mutual relationship. 039. I cheated. Believe it or not is up to you. At this time. Seireitei, Shihouin family. Known as one of the 4 oldest nobles in Soul Society, he is in charge of various artifacts, and is known as the God-given weapon banner. Only, today, in the courtyard of Shihouin's house, which is well equipped with pavilions and pavilions, a young man is lying there lazily. Next to her, a dark-skinned beauty and a petite, serious-looking girl were helplessly looking at the drunken Bai Ye. You are really not injured. Shihouin Yoruichi's eyes were confused. After learning that Bai Ye killed Kenpachi, she invited Bai Ye to Shihouin's home as a guest. She also wanted to know what methods Bai Ye used to kill Kenpachi. The most important is, Bai Ye killed the contemporary Kenpachi, which is likely to cause Gote 13 and Central 46 to take action. And now, at Shihouin's house, even if Captain Yamamoto comes in person, it is absolutely impossible for him to do anything excessive. Fine. Bai Ye took a sip of wine and shook his head gently. As soon as he finished drinking with Rangaku and the others, he received a message from Yoruichi. He naturally knew what Yoruichi was thinking. Although he is not afraid of Gote 13 and Central 46, Yoruichi has good intentions after all, and he has not been a guest of the Shihouin family for a while. I heard that the knife you struck before cut open the space. Do I know why? Yoruichi's curiosity was burning at this time. Soul Society. It is not uncommon for Kidō to have spatial abilities, or to be strong. However, Zanpakuto's ability alone can actually cut through space. And with the help of the invincible tearing power of space to fight, Bai Ye is the only one in the entire Soul Society. This is an ability that is worthy of being recorded in history. Certainly, if speaking out affects you, it's okay not to speak out. After all, everyone has their own secrets, not to mention their own combat power. In the back, Sui Feng also looked at Bai Ye, who was drinking with curiosity. She had met Bai Ye several times because of Yoruichi. I thought he was just a drunkard. But during this time, defeated Maki Ichinos, kill the Ajukas, win the first place in the academy and kill Byakuya. This time, he even killed Kenpachi, the Demon King. It can be said that Bai Ye is now a top-notch figure even in the entire Seireitei. But it is such a person who only cares about drinking on weekdays, which is completely different from those geniuses who are immersed in hard work. Faced with Yoruichi's question, Bai Ye just smiled slightly. You feed me wine and I will tell you. Shihouin Yoruichi's face was full of black lines. She originally refused, but curiosity prompted her to pour a glass of wine for Bai Ye and feed it to his mouth. After drinking alcohol, Bai Ye nodded with satisfaction. Now, you can tell me. Yoruichi looked at Bai Ye. Cheating. Bai Ye just said lazily. Cheating. The corners of Shihouin Yoruichi's mouth twitched slightly, and his fists became hard. This is obviously a perfunctory statement, who would believe it? Snort. Yoruichi snorted and turned away. On the side, Sui Feng also looked at Bai Ye with the eyes of a liar. Some time ago, Master Unohana Retsu and Master Yoruichi discussed and prepared a gift for Bai Ye to celebrate his breakthrough to the third-level spiritual power. It will be ready soon. But, Bai Ye actually used such words to deceive Yoruichi. Why, Yoruichi-sama, you are so pitiful. Sui Feng looked at Yoruichi and sighed softly in his heart. And Bai Ye, he just didn't care. He told the truth, whether Yoruichi believed it or not, it had nothing to do with him. Open black lens bracket ding. Close black lens bracket. Congratulations to host, you asked Yoruichi to feed you alcohol. Host's spiritual power has been broken through. You have achieved 30% of the third level spiritual power. Close black lens bracket. You have been drinking continuously, and you have obtained the Heart of the Divine Blade. Your blade is extremely sharp and can cut off all control. Close black lens bracket. Lingwei breakthrough. Heart of the Divine Blade. Bai Ye looked at the introduction about the Heart of the Divine Blade on the system panel. The blade is sharp and cuts off control. It can be said. Now, I have no shortcomings in frontal combat and shunpo, but my fear of control has always been my flaw. If I see Aizen's Kyoka Suigetsu, or Hiroko Shinji's counter caress, or other Zanpakuto with strong control ability, I really don't have any way to deal with it now. Some Bakuto will also fall victim to this attack if they are not careful. But the Heart of the Divine Blade freed itself from this shortcoming. Cut off all control. It can be said that even Zanpakuto Kyoka Suigetsu, the strongest illusionist, is nothing but a joke in front of him. Even the Kidō Forbidden Technique is no match for the Heart of the Divine Blade, and is vulnerable to a single blow. Good. Bai Ye nodded with satisfaction. In the early stages of the plot, those control-type abilities were particularly disgusting, but I was completely immune. And, Bai Ye narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the Heart of the Divine Blade. In the later stages of the plot, the Perfection Technique, and the period of the Invisible Empire, when the control system will also succumb to the rules system, there is still room for improvement in the Heart of the Divine Blade. In the original work, Hiroku Shunsui was able to take over the position of captain after Yamamoto's death and stabilize the overall situation, which is also inseparable from his rules system Zanpakuto Kaden Kyokutsu. As long as he keeps drinking and letting the Heart of the Divine Blade advance, he can even become immune to all rule-based abilities. But, all this is a story for later. System panel. Bai Ye's heart moved, and a translucent panel suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. Open black lens bracket host. Bai Ye close black lens bracket. Zanpakuto. Lufengweishui unlocks Shikai, Lufengweishui. Lingwei. Third class 30%. Swordsmanship. Captain level. Close black lens bracket. White hits. Captain level. Close black lens bracket. Shunpo. Captain level. Forbidden Technique, Taishu Flash Goddess. Kidō. Master the first 50, no need to chant, cast instantly. Forbidden Technique. Double chant. Special ability. Heart of the Divine Blade. Close black lens bracket. By now, he has been promoted to captain level in all aspects. Coupled with the various forbidden techniques, it is even comparable to the best among captains. At the same time, at Shihouin's house, two figures, a man and a woman, looked at Bai Ye and Yoruichi from a distance, nodding with satisfaction on their faces. They are the current head of the Shihouin family, Shihouin Chunyan, and his wife, Shihouin Chunji. Also Yoruichi's parents. Say, if this child Bai Ye were to marry into the Shihouin family. Shihouin Haruhime had a smile on her face. It could be said that although Bai Ye was born in Rukongai, she had always had a very close relationship with Yoruichi. And his talent is top-notch in the entire Seireitei. If he and Yoruichi get married, it will be a good thing not only for Yoruichi, but also for the entire Shihouin family. Let's see what those two children think. Chun Yan, the head of the family, said softly. Regarding Yoruichi's choice, he didn't want to interfere, but Yoruichi had done too much for Bai Ye recently. It's hard not to think too much. Use the power of the family to put pressure on Gote 13 and Central 46. And now, Bai Ye is brought to Shihouin's home again, so that no one can take advantage of the incident of Kenpachi in Guiyan City to take action against Bai Ye. Although all this is their acquiescence, Bai Ye has been labeled as Shihouin. In other words, the Shihouin family and Bai Ye are already tied together. Right now, Master, wife of the Master, Captain Yamamoto is here. I don't know why. A servant hurried over with a hint of nervousness on his face. After all, this was a personal visit from Soul Society's most powerful force. 040. Let Bai Ye be Kenpachi. Advertise here. Yamamoto. Shihouin Chunyan frowned slightly. This is not a good sign. As soon as Kenpachi died, Yamamoto came to visit. He knew with his ass that all this was related to Bai Ye. Regarding the most powerful man in Soul Society, even if he is the head of the Shihouin family, we must treat him with caution. Not long after. In the living room, Shihouin Chunyan, Shihouin Chunji sat on the main seat. On the side are Bai Ye, who is slightly red-faced and drunk, and Yoruichi. Sui Feng is standing behind Yoruichi, looking like the most dedicated bodyguard. And on the opposite side, he was an old man with a stooped figure who looked like he was about to die, but his eyes opened and closed like a deep dream, filled with the vicissitudes of life. And behind him, the two captains are Isshin Shiba and Urahara Kazuki. Shiba looked at Bai Ye wholeheartedly and couldn't imagine that such a Jumongza could do so many earth-shattering things. It even gave the captain a headache. As for Urahara Kazuki, although he is very young, the stubble on his chin has grown out and he looks like a middle-aged uncle. The clothes also have some wrinkles, full of the atmosphere of an experimenter. He really didn't want to come to this kind of scene, and now he just wanted to stay in the laboratory and continue his experiments. Only, this time, he didn't have much resistance in his heart. Urahara Kazuki looked at Bai Ye, the rumors of Bai Ye flashed in his mind, and his eyes showed interest. Rumor. Bai Ye's Zanpakutō can tear apart space. If Bai Ye uses Kidō or other abilities, what is the principle? If you can figure it out, does that mean you can make a weapon that can tear apart space? Think of this. There was a hint of excitement in Urahara Kazuki's eyes. The power of space tearing is far greater than 10,000 Zanpakutō slashes. The entire Soul Society, without even matter being able to block it, would be torn apart in an instant. If an ordinary Shinigami equips it, it can even pose a certain threat to captain-level experts. Only, Urahara Kazuki shook his head. Now is not the time for his own experiments. The captain is here for business. At the same time, opposite, Bai Ye also looked at the three people in front of him. Needless to say, Mr. Yamamoto, Ryujin Jaka, the strongest Shinigami, has world-destroying combat power. Shiba is one heart, captain of the 10th division. Later, after meeting Kurosaki Masaki in the real world, he married Kurosaki Masaki and changed his name to Kurosaki Isshin. He is also the father of the original protagonist, Kurosaki Ichigo. Possessing Zanpakutō Engetsu, the ability is Getsuga Tenshu. Kurosaki Ichigo's Getsuga Tenshu was inherited from him. His own strength can be regarded as the best among the captains. After all, in the Karakura town battle in the original book, after Aizen merged with Hogyoku, Kurosaki Isshin could still fight Aizen back and forth. Although he couldn't hold on for long, it still proved his strength. And Urahara Kazuki, the current captain of Division 12, director of the Technology Development Bureau, and the person with the highest IQ in the entire Soul Society. With Zanpakutō Benihime, Bankai Kanonbaraki Benihime Aratame can transform everything Zanpakutō touches. In the 1,000-year bloody war, it played an extremely important role. And he himself, because of his superb IQ, he is known as one of Soul Society's 5 special forces. At this time, in the living room, the atmosphere was somewhat solemn. After all, Yamamoto Genryusai seemed to be asking for justice. As for Yoruichi and her parents, they were secretly trying to figure out what to say next. Prepare to try your best to excuse Bai Ye. But, regarding compensation for Gote 13, it is definitely indispensable. Although Kenpachi Kionjo was also at fault, Bai Ye killed him directly, which was a big mistake. Shihouin Chunyan knew in his heart that Yamamoto Genryusai, whether he wanted to or not, would stand up for Kyoshi Kenpachi and resolve the matter properly to maintain the dignity of Gote 13. Only, at this moment, Yamamoto Genryusai took a breath and said lightly. Bai Ye, would you be interested in serving as a contemporary Kenpachi? Finished. A pair of old eyes stared at Bai Ye, studying his expression. As soon as the words left his mouth. Shock. Petrochemical. The whole hall was silent. Everyone's eyes were going back and forth between Yamamoto and Bai Ye, and they felt a feeling of, who am I and where am I, in their hearts. Didn't Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekoku come here to raise an army and question the crime? Why did you suddenly ask Bai Ye to serve as Kenpachi? What on earth was he thinking? Everyone was thinking about it. Even though Shihouin Chunyan has experienced countless political battles, he is still a little overwhelmed at this time. Behind Yamamoto, Urahara Kazuki's eyes were full of understanding. Higan Castle Kenpachi is dead, which is a heavy blow to the prestige of Gote 13. However, if Bai Ye, the murderer, is appointed as Kenpachi, will it have any impact on the prestige of Gote 13? No impact at all. Moreover, Gote 13 also gained a stronger Kenpachi. The prestige simply increases instead of decreasing. This is the best method. But, if Bai Ye doesn't agree, Captain Yamamoto, I'm afraid he will have to use another method. Think of this. Urahara Kazuki shook his head slightly. It seemed that the captain's other method was useless. Becoming a Kenpachi, not only can you command a squad, but your status in the entire Seireitei will be greatly improved. Even if Bai Ye has a grudge against the Kuchiki family, but as a contemporary Kenpachi, even the Kuchiki family cannot attack Bai Ye. Make something. It can be said, Bai Ye has no reason to refuse. At this time, others in the hall had the same idea. Haruyan, Haruji, and Yoruichi looked at Bai Ye, waiting for his nod. Haruyan also reacted and guessed what Yamamoto Genryusai was thinking, and looked at Yamamoto with a hint of amazement. Ginger is still spicy. The conflict that was going to happen was easily resolved by Captain Yamamoto with these few words, and it was a win-win outcome. As long as Bai Ye nods. Today is the perfect result. As for Shiba Yishin in the rear, his eyes widened, and he felt a sense of unreality in his heart. He didn't expect that Bai Ye could be so valued by the captain. This is Kenpachi's name. Countless Shinigami are vying for this honor. How could Captain Yamamoto give him away so lightly? But, turning around and thinking about it, with Bai Ye's talent and combat power, it seems really reasonable to serve as Kenpachi. It seems that Captain Yamamoto is thoughtful. Now, everyone's eyes were focused on Bai Ye. However, Bai Ye still took a sip of wine with an indifferent expression. Even though Captain Yamamoto personally offered to solicit, his mind did not fluctuate at all. Feel sorry. I reject. Comma.